Chapter 187, Qianjun Cultivation Technique 3. Chapter 187, Qianjun Cultivation Technique. Qianjun technique is a cultivation technique introduced by a group of old fellows, and the follow-up is also very good. For example, the Myriad Stone Realm's Myriad Stone Technique, and the Soaring Sky Realm's Soaring Sky Technique. The name of the cultivation technique is based on the realm. From this, one can see the benefits of this cultivation technique. Suyu hurriedly said, "Teacher, then I'll cultivate Qianjun technique? What's the rush?" Lu Wenyan stirred the spatula as he said, "Like I said, it's targeted at the general public. After all, their talent isn't strong and they lack resources. It's already good enough that they can advance. Who cares about their combat strength? They cultivate quickly. After 10 to 20 years, they've become soaring in the sky. It's still better than those geniuses who cultivate powerful cultivation techniques and still remain at Qianjun. No matter how weak they were, soaring in the sky, and how bad their cultivation techniques were, Qianjun was still no match for them. Whether to pursue rapid advancement or to pursue the strength of their own realm, this was also a question that many people struggled with. Lu Wenyan smiled and said, "It's better to advance faster or to be stronger in this realm. It varies from person to person. You can't ask someone who doesn't have talent to cultivate powerful cultivation techniques. If that happens, he might be stuck at Qianjun for the rest of his life. But you can't let a genius cultivate a weak cultivation technique either. The advancement is fast, but this genius is almost useless. At that time, he can't be considered a genius. The higher the realm, the greater the gap. If you cultivate the Qianjun technique to the Mountain Sea realm, you might be killed by someone who cultivates a powerful cultivation technique. Then what's the point of such a Mountain Sea realm? The upper limit is too low." Lu Wenyan turned his head to look at Suyu and said with a smile, "Do you want to advance quickly, or do you want the upper limit to be higher and cultivate a powerful cultivation technique?" Suyu didn't hesitate at all and hurriedly said, "The upper limit is high." He was a genius. If he cultivated a weak cultivation technique, he might very quickly reach the sky or even the Mountain Sea realm. But after that, there was nothing. There was nothing after that. At that time, there would be a limit. He would be famous in the early stages, but in the later stages, he might become a trash existence. This was not what he was after. Of course, cultivation techniques are not necessarily better the more powerful they are. Heaven-ranked cultivation techniques might not be stronger than earth-ranked cultivation techniques. The key lies in the follow-up problem. For example, there is a cultivation technique called the heaven-splitting technique. 1000 June opening 144 apertures, the top heaven-ranked cultivation technique. Lu Wenyan said with a sigh, "The 9th level of Qianjun, with 144 openings, is extremely powerful in storing yuan qi. An ordinary 9th level 10,000 stone who cultivates the Qianjun technique might not even be comparable to it. That is the true ability to cross realms and kill people. Qianjun cuts 10,000 stones, and it is not an ordinary 10,000 stones. But that cultivation technique does not have a follow-up. It is unable to break through the barrier of Qianjun. It might be stuck in the Qianjun realm for the rest of its life. Do you think such a heaven-ranked cultivation technique is considered powerful?" Suyu shook his head. "Without a follow-up, we can only rely on luck and create it ourselves. If the Qianjun realm could create such a follow-up cultivation technique, then it wouldn't be Qianjun. But, did the invincible experts not continue to create it? Nonsense. They have their own cultivation technique, their own inheritance, and their own famous cultivation technique. Why do they have to expend a lot of energy to supplement the follow-up in this aspect? It's not like they don't have a heaven-ranked top-tier cultivation method. It's not like they have to cultivate this cultivation method." Lu Wenyan smiled and said, "There are many cultivation methods like this in the myriad realms. It's amazing in the early stages, but it's dead in the later stages. It's impossible for you to constantly supplement it, and it's also impossible for you to replenish it. No one has that kind of energy. Let me tell you. Currently, the Great Xia Manor has a strict inheritance of cultivation methods. They can even pass down cultivation methods that can be cultivated to the invincible realm as you call it. The first one is the Great Xia Emperor's splitting open the sky's countless blades. Su Yu was stunned. Teacher, are you serious? Why are you looking at me? Lu Wenyan turned his head and glared at him. It's not like I gave it a name. The Great Xia Emperor did it on his own. When he was at the Shanhai realm, he named it Splitting Open the Sky's 20 Blades. When he broke through to the peak, he changed the name to Splitting Open the Sky's 28 Blades. After a period of time, he added a few more blades and continued to change the name. Lu Wenyan was also helpless. Then, when he reached the invincible realm, the Great Xia Emperor started to change his name again. Every time, he added more blades. At the start, the Civilization Academy even gave him an official name. Later, they realized that this was not possible. This person might add a few blades every year. How could he change it like this? Later on, he decided to call it Countless Heaven-Cleaving Blades. Su Yu was stunned. This was possible. Don't be surprised. This isn't something that the Great Xia Emperor did alone. In fact, it's very common. Lu Wenyan explained, in the early period of the Anping calendar, there were very few sources of cultivation techniques from that group of experts. Some of them were obtained from the 10,000 clans. Later on, they were constantly replenished, and the names of their cultivation techniques kept changing. The Great Xia Emperor was considered good, and it could be considered as a series of names. Some people simply didn't belong to the same series. Today, it's called Dragon Slaying Technique. Tomorrow, after killing a dog, it might have changed its name to Dog Slaying Technique. Lu Wenyan said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, he said, if you see some mistakes or omissions in some ancient records, don't think that you've made a mistake. It's not a mistake. For example, in the Annals of Peace, it was recorded that the great Zhou king had once used the Black Wind Demon technique to kill a god, and in the Great Zhou records, the great Zhou king had used the Heavenly Return technique to kill a god. That was not a mistake in the records. Lu Wenyan sighed. That was because they changed their names. They killed 2 gods and demons, not 1. When you read the book, don't think that it's a loophole. The records of these people are very chaotic. Sometimes, they are even muddled. Back then, I even changed this name. Chapter 188, Qianjun Cultivation Technique 4. Chapter 188, Qianjun Cultivation Technique 4. When he heard this, Su Yu was stunned. There was such a saying. When the great Zhou king saw the records about him, he looked at it and thought, did I change such a shameful name back then? Thinking about it, it would definitely be very interesting. Su Yu wanted to laugh, and Lu Wenyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He continued, the Great Xia Manor's cultivation technique that has reached the unrivaled realm has that the War Hall released a few years this is also the main cultivation technique of the War Hall. The third is the innumerable literature scripture that was released in the Quest realm. This is the main cultivation technique of the Civilization Hall. Of course, just because you can cultivate to the invincible realm doesn't mean that you can cultivate to that level. If everyone could do it, the invincible experts would be worthless, and the myriad clans would have been wiped out long ago. Cultivation still depends on yourself. It depends on luck, talent, perseverance, and hard work. Lu Wenyan said seriously, currently, only these 3 cultivation techniques are publicly known to be able to cultivate to the invincible realm. Of course, I'm talking about the Great Xia Manor. In fact, there might be some private inheritances. For example, some clans have top-tier experts. They might have deduced the invincible cultivation technique themselves, but he hasn't broken through to that realm yet. Whether he can do it or not, no one can say for sure. Teacher, then should I cultivate the 10,000 Literature Sutra? Suyu asked. Lu Wenyan shook his head and said, that can only be cultivated in the sky realm. There is no cultivation method passed down from thousands of tons of stones. Because a civilized master starts from the sky. I suggest you cultivate the War God technique. The 1,000 tons realm opens 72 apertures. Suyu was a little disappointed. He actually wanted to cultivate stronger cultivation methods, such as the Earth-grade top-notch cultivation method that opened 108 apertures. Of course, since his teacher had suggested it, he believed that Lu Wenyan would not harm him. Just as he was thinking, Lu Wenyan smiled and said, the Alart Art of War God has a normal version and a genius version. There here are two different versions. The normal version is targeted at ordinary students. Many of the genius students in Zhanjiang College would choose another version to open 108 apertures. It's not only Zhanjiang College, but also Civilization College. Teaching is based on one's aptitude. If it's all modeled, then it would be the military. There's no need to open another college. Suyu's eyes lit up and he hurriedly said, Teacher, then. Lu Wenyan interrupted, it's good that you're confident. Actually, you're now at the 9th level of the awakening realm, and your progress is very fast. I also think that you should cultivate with a higher difficulty. Even if you have the help of the divine pros, you can still experience it at this realm. It doesn't matter if you delay a little. However, your teacher doesn't have an advanced version of the cultivation technique. Lu Wenyan was about to fry the dishes to shreds. He casually poured the charred dishes onto the plate. Clearly, it was Suyu's Chinese food. I can still think of a way to get you a normal version, but I don't have an advanced version. You'll have to spend your merit points to exchange for it, and you'll only get the normal version. The text of Will version, that'll cost a lot. Suyu quickly said, then where can we exchange it? Can we do it in our academy? No, we can only exchange it in an advanced academy. The civilized academy will have it. Don't worry. Lu Wenyan smiled. No matter how awesome the war institution is, he has to beg the civilized academy to write more versions of the text of the will of the for them, and it has to be those civilized masters who have practiced the art of war God. Therefore, in Civilization University, there are quite a number of experts who know the art of war God. Civilization University is very inclusive and has all kinds of cultivation technique. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to write the corresponding essay of Yin. In order to earn money, some civilization masters write more essays will, and there may be as many as 10 cultivation techniques. Is that possible? Suyu said in surprise, there won't be a conflict. Of course there is, but if you choose a good cultivation technique, then there might not be a conflict. Of course, this is the work of a civilized master who has no future. Lu Wenyan continued, there is not much difference between the ordinary and genius version of the Wargad technique, especially when the 72 apertures are opened. In fact, they are the same. However, there are 36 additional apertures on top of the 72 apertures. So, you can practice the ordinary version of the Wargad technique first. In the future, when you have the chance, you can exchange for the advanced version. If you cultivate the normal version, you'll be in the origin awakening realm. If you open another 8 apertures, you'll be able to advance to the 1,000-ton realm. If you cultivate the advanced version, you'll have to open 12 apertures. That's why you'll first open 8 apertures in the origin awakening realm. When you get to the academy, you'll switch to the advanced version and cultivate another 4 apertures to replenish yourself. Only then will you be able to advance. Otherwise, once you advance to the 1,000-ton realm, you won't be able to change it. After Lu Wenyan finished speaking, he smiled and said, this is also the reason why many little fellows have been stuck at the 9th level of the origin opening realm and are unwilling to break through. You should know that many 9th level origin opening realm students are waiting to enter the academy to advance. Suyu nodded. Previously, He was still puzzled that many great Xia Academy students seemed to be stuck at the 9th level of the origin opening realm and had not advanced. He had thought that the other party would not be able to break through, but now it seemed that they were also waiting. Then, some people have broken through Qianjun realm. Either the other party chose the normal version, or someone in the family will. Su Yu asked in surprise, is there no limit to the inheritance in this family? There is, but it can also be solved by spending some merit points, Lu Wenyan said with a smile. There is someone in the family whose merit level is high enough. It is not a big problem for them to pass on some cultivation techniques to their descendants. Su Yu understood. Teacher, is it expensive to exchange for this? It's okay. It's only 100 merit points for 1,000 June realm cultivation technique. Su Yu was stunned. Lu Wenyan said indifferently, yes, it's the 100 merit points that are rewarded. Do you really think that the academy will give you a large amount of merit points? You'll know once you enter. What they reward you will be taken away very soon. You can continue to take root in the academy and slowly earn. Who would be willing to cultivate the normal version after entering the high-tier version? The advanced version requires merit points to exchange for it. It just so happens that they rewarded you with 100 merit points, which was offset in an instant. Su Yu was dumbstruck. The high-tier academy was really shrewd. If it wasn't for Lu Wenyan's words, he wouldn't have known about this encounter. No wonder everyone said that in the high-tier academy, merit points were simply not enough. It was too much of a scam. The normal version is free. Don't worry, you don't have to change it. It's the same for the normal version as well. Lu Wenyan teased, why don't you save it? Don't change it. Su Yu had a sad expression on his face. I want to be a genius too. I want to look down on my peers. I have to change it. Even if I don't change it, I won't be a match for those 9 Dan geniuses in Zhangjin College. Wouldn't that be a huge loss? Teacher, isn't it cheaper to secretly exchange cultivation techniques with others? It's against the law. Lu Wenyan dispelled his thoughts. I've said it before. There are people in my family with high achievement levels who can pass down the legacy. The quota is limited. Otherwise, it would be against the law if they were discovered. Do you think the loophole is that easy to exploit? Su Yu gave up. His heart was dead. His 100 achievement points didn't seem to be in his hands yet. Now, he realized that it was gone. Lu Wenyan comforted him, it's fine. Don't you still have dozens of merit points as rewards? You can spend them for a long time if you save them. I'll get someone to get a copy of the normal version of the Art of War God you can come back in 2 days to get due. Don't even think about the version of Art of War God I, your teacher, haven't practiced the Art of War God before so I can't write this. Su Yu nodded. He didn't want the Art War God Enimohi. He knew a little about it and this thing consumed a lot of energy. Chapter 189, Myriad Descent 1. Chapter 189, Myriad Descent 1. After asking about the cultivation technique, Su Yu felt a lot more relaxed. The advanced version of the God of War technique, Enlightenment 108, could be considered a top-tier Earth-rank cultivation technique. It was already very good. As for Heaven-rank cultivation techniques, Su Yu did not pursue them. On one hand, it was difficult to obtain, and on the other hand, it would be even more troublesome to cultivate and drag down his progress. Earth rank was already sufficient. 9th level of Yuan opening. If I were to cultivate the advanced version of the God of War technique, then I would have to open the 12 apertures of Qianjun first level. Qianjun had 9 apertures, and if he were to open another 12 apertures of the 9th level of Yuan opening, he would be able to directly step into the peak of Qianjun first level. However, in the normal version, only 8 apertures could be cultivated. As he was thinking, Su Yu was eating the burnt food. He thought for a moment before raising his head and said, Teacher, do you want to exchange for the 10,000 stone volume yourself? Of course. Lu Wenyan casually said, of course. You can exchange for 10,000 stones, and 10,000 stones can be exchanged for flying. You can only be one realm higher than yourself. The higher the level, the stricter the examination, and the higher the requirement for merit points. In order to prevent the 10,000 clan sect from taking it away. Sort of. Lu Wenyan smiled. It's not just because of this. There's also one more thing. I won't let you reap it for free. The rise of the human race did not depend on a few experts, but on countless human beings fighting together. Look at the heavenly battlefield. There are countless soldiers. If we only rely on a few experts, how can we defend it? If you don't pay, if I don't pay, then the human race will not become a powerful race. Merit points are exchanged. The merit points used to exchange for merit points are given to the creator of the cultivation method, which is usually 30%. Lu Wenyan sighed, the richest people in the human race are not the invincible powerhouses, but the powerhouses who created these cultivation methods. The bonus alone is shocking. Of course, they can also be bought out, for example, the Qianjun formula was bought out by the military. I wonder if the powerhouses who created the Qianjun formula will regret it. He originally thought that it was just a yellow rank cultivation method, but it was worthless. To an invincible expert, this thing was really not worth mentioning. In the end, the military of the human race praised it, and then the entire human race began to cultivate. If this thing were to charge a fee, even if one person cultivated and collected one merit point, that would be tens of billions of merit points. Moreover, this was not a generation, but every generation was cultivating. This time, even Suyu felt sorry for the person who created the 1,000 mass art. He could not help but ask, how much money did the military give when they bought it? I don't know. It happened many years ago. At that time, there was no mention of meritorious deeds. I heard that they exchanged it for a demon corpse in the sky realm. Lu Wenyan didn't really remember. This had happened many years ago. What was passed down now was only some gossip from that year. A demon corpse in the sky realm. It might not even be the top-tier kind, but to buy out this cultivation technique in the end was too much of a loss. Suyu felt sorry for that person and continued, then did you buy out the rest of the cultivation techniques as well? I heard so. Of course, I'm not too sure about the specific situation. Cultivation techniques above the Shanghai realm might have been created in the later stages, so they might not have been bought out. I don't know about that. After all, Lu Wenyan had just taken off, so he didn't pay too much attention to these things. Seeing Su Yu's interest, he couldn't help but laugh. You want to give it a try too? Creating cultivation techniques, civilized masters are good at it. All kinds of cultivation techniques have been created by civilized masters, but in the end, the results weren't satisfactory, and there were all kinds of drawbacks in cultivating. Some people suddenly grow a tail, or an extra hand, or a scale. After all, most of the cultivation techniques we refer to come from the 10,000 races. This is still good, but the bad ones will directly kill people. Lu Wenyan sighed. On this point, the human race must remember the merits of civilized masters. Civilized masters created countless cultivation techniques. Some were useless, and some were useful. Most of the martial techniques and cultivation techniques used by the human race today were created by civilized masters. No one knew how many people died in succession. Generations of civilized masters have continuously improved their cultivation techniques. From the time when they relied on luck to cultivate, to now, they have followed a step-by-step procedure. From the time when the cultivators were half dead to now, almost no one has died due to cultivation deviation. These are all the achievements of civilized masters. Hearing Lu Wenyan's words, Suyu could not help but nod. Perhaps these civilized masters who created cultivation techniques did not have strong combat strength and had not even been to the front line, but in terms of contribution, it was really not small. Suyu said somewhat longingly, in the future, if I can also create a cultivation technique that is suitable for the general public, such as the earth rank, the type that is not harder to cultivate than the 1000 mass technique, then I won't have to worry about merit points for the rest of my life. This idea of yours. Many people have it. Lu Wenyan smiled and said, civilized masters all think this way, but reality is impossible. After so many years, if there really is a cultivation technique that is more suitable for the human race, the basic cultivation technique that the human race cultivates would have changed long ago. Suyu didn't say this again, he was just imagining it. Very soon, Suyu was puzzled again and asked, Teacher, are these cultivation methods really impossible for the 10,000 clans and the experts of the 10,000 clans to obtain? That's not to the extent. Probably some strong clans have them, at least those before the Mountain Sea realm should have them. Lu Wenyan smiled and said, it doesn't matter. We also have the cultivation methods of the 10,000 clans, we just need to constantly improve them. Then why are you still charging us? I've already said that we want you to pay as much as you can and reap as much as you can. We're not asking you to reap without doing anything. Lu Wenyan berated, don't have the intention of getting free pie. Moreover, at the advanced stage, there are merit points restrictions. Chapter 190, Entry of the 10,000 Races 2. Chapter 190, Entry of the 10,000 Races 2. Lu Wenyan said playfully, in order to obtain the cultivation technique, the 10,000 races have killed many people from other races. If the Celestials want to obtain the cultivation technique, not only will they plant spies, they will also kill other races to obtain merit points, and vice versa. Every time a cultivation technique is improved, it will bring a lot of benefits. Lu Wenyan said with a smile, let me tell you a secret that is not considered a secret. About 80 years ago, a spy of the Myriad clan cult infiltrated the Civilization Academy. In order to obtain the first edition of the Myriad Literature Sutra cultivation technique above the mountain and sea realm, that guy went to the heavenly battlefield and killed dozens of gods and devils. Then, he changed the cultivation technique of the top-tier experts of the Myriad Literature Sutra. In the end, there were many problems with the first edition. It was only suitable for the cultivation of the human race, and even the cultivation of the human race was troublesome. In the end, he brought it back to the Azure Dragon clan. At that time, the few top-tier civilization masters of the Azure Dragon clan tried to modify the cultivation technique, and all of them exploded. Lu Wenyan chuckled and said, all of them self-destructed. The humans immediately knew about it. Not only did they discover a spy, but they also realized that the cultivation technique was very problematic. Under normal circumstances, even if it was not suitable for cultivation, they would not let the top-notch experts directly explode. This meant that there was a big loophole in it. After that, we modified it a few more times. Sometimes, we even deliberately released some cultivation techniques, but we were not sure of the consequences of cultivating them. There were many deaths among the 10,000 clans. While he was talking happily, Suyu was thinking more. After Lu Wenyan finished speaking, Suyu said in a low voice, then there were many deaths among the human civilization masters, right? Yes. Lu Wenyan nodded, you schemed against me, and it's normal for me to scheme against you. In order to try the cultivation techniques of the 10,000 races, human civilization masters would also die every year. They would go crazy and self-destruct. These were all there, but they had no choice but to study them. Everyone is improving. If you don't improve and don't know yourself and the enemy, how can you continue to fight? The master and disciple didn't say anything else. They ate in silence. After they finished eating, Suyu was ready to leave. Lu Wenyan thought for a moment and said, Bai Feng's side has indeed been in some trouble recently. Whether you want to learn from him or not, you can think about it yourself when you go to the academy. I understand. After saying goodbye to Lu Wenyan, Suyu walked home. Apart from the body path cultivation technique, his willpower could actually be cultivated too. He could observe the original of the myriad clan cultivation technique. The Thousand June Realm cultivation technique required 20 to 49% of his willpower to be fully charged before he could view it. He had just entered 20% not too long ago, and at this moment, he could only look at the incomplete version. He could not see the complete version yet. And in Su Yu's hands, there happened to be a fragment. That was what Bai Feng had given him back then. It was Su Yu's first time viewing it, and he did not see anything. He was in a daze for half a day. At this stage, civilized masters cultivated by observing these fragments to strengthen their willpower. The resistance of willpower was helpful in improving willpower. When they reached the recuperation stage, they could use more methods to improve themselves. At home, Su Yu took out the bone fragment. He didn't know which race it belonged to, whether it was a martial technique or a cultivation technique, or whether it was some unimportant literature. Su Yu didn't know either. Bai Feng didn't say, and Su Yu didn't ask. The biggest use of this bone fragment was to train his willpower, not to let Su Yu figure out the meaning behind it. These days, he was busy raising his realm and cultivating martial techniques, so Su Yu didn't have much time to observe. At this moment, he hadn't gotten a new cultivation technique, War God technique. Su Yu didn't have much to do, so he prepared to train his willpower a little more recently, in case he couldn't even see it when he got to the academy. It would be a waste of time and opportunity. His willpower covered the bone fragment, and Su Yu began to observe it calmly. This is. After calming down, Su Yu quickly saw some hazy words. After making a careful judgment, Su Yu quickly recognized the race that the words belonged to, the violent ape race. This was a race that was relatively common in the heavenly battlefield, and they fought fiercely. There were a few elite troops in the heavenly battlefield, and the violent ape race was one of them, the violent ape race that was in the Thousand June realm. When they fought, it was as if they didn't care about their lives at all. The human race had the same number of legions, and their strength was similar to the other parties. If they encountered the other party, they would be defeated very quickly. It wasn't that the human race wasn't strong, but that this race was too crazy. When they fought, it was as if they had no consciousness at all. They were incomparably fierce. Of course, the other party was very strong in a head-on battle. Once they entered a trap, they would also charge forward foolishly. Therefore, as long as they arranged it properly, it was very easy to kill the other party. The violent ape race often suffered heavy losses on the battlefield. The violent ape race could be considered to be the deity race's subordinate. As for which deity race they were fighting for, this was not something Su Yu could understand. The deity race was a general term. The humanoid creatures that lived in the deity world could all be considered as the deity race. There were also many races within. For example, the heavenly deity race was one of them. Su Yu did not think about this anymore. The violent ape race's language happened to be a type of language that he had learned. He knew these words. Arm slash. Su Yu identified the language, but he was not sure if the translation was correct. This was the first time he had seen the original language of the 10,000 tribes cultivation technique. What he had learned before was all rubbings. After slowly reading for a while, Su Yu's willpower began to deplete. However, Su Yu did not bother about it. Reading this kind of fragment, there was almost no danger. Once his willpower was exhausted, he would naturally withdraw. The violent ape tribe has powerful arms. Arm slash is a battle technique commonly used by the violent ape tribe under bare hands. Su Yu gradually understood a little. This was a martial technique. It was used to cultivate the acupuncture points in both arms to strengthen the strength of both arms. Vaguely, he even saw a huge ape cultivating. Chapter 191, Entry of the 10,000 Races 3. Chapter 191, Entry of the 10,000 Races. At this moment, Su Yu suddenly understood. This is the text of will, the text of will of the 10,000 races. He was in a daze for a moment. He seemed to have entered a mistaken area previously. That day, when Bai Feng had taught him the divine text, he had said that he would learn from the 10,000 races' original source. Later, when he had learned the divine text from Bai Feng's origin opening technique, he had thought that the human race's text of will was the only one. Now that he thought about it, the original divine text should have been obtained from the 10,000 clans' original texts, or rather, the human race had obtained it from the very beginning. Therefore, the 10,000 clans' original texts are actually the text of the will, not the human race's. This one is only a fragment, so I didn't see it clearly. However, the 10,000 clans' original texts have been stored for a longer time than the human race's. Su Yu made a judgment. Bai Feng's book was almost out of date. Was it because the carrier wasn't good enough, or was it because Bai Feng wasn't strong enough? The fragment in his hand had been in Bai Feng's hands for the same amount of time as the origin opening technique. He didn't know how long it had been in Bai Feng's hands, but it still had willpower. Did this mean that the violent ape clan that wrote the original was stronger? Does this also mean that the original 10,000 tribes are actually consumables? Su Yu was suddenly shocked. Did this mean that when the internal willpower was exhausted, this thing would become useless? Shaking his head, Su Yu did not think anymore. He would know when he turned around. If he studied this arm slash for a long time, this thing might completely shatter. Arm slash opens the acupuncture points in both arms. It specializes in cultivating the strength of both arms. The violent ape tribe has opened 16 acupuncture points in each arm, a total of 32 acupuncture points. It can be considered a top yellow rank martial technique. Martial techniques and martial techniques usually complemented each other. If a martial technique opened 36 acupuncture points, and a matching martial technique opened 30 acupuncture points, then these 30 acupuncture points were usually opened by a martial technique. There was no need to open any additional acupuncture points. Of course, there might be some differences, so it was necessary to open additional apertures. I don't know what the Thunder Origin Saber's cultivation method is. If I cultivate the Aries art, once it doesn't coincide with the apertures opened by the Thunder Origin Saber, I'm afraid that I'll have to open quite a few additional apertures if I want to cultivate the Thunder Origin Saber well. Don't tell me that I still need to exchange merit points for the martial skill that comes with the Aries art. Su Yu started to connect the dots again, feeling a little depressed. The Thunder Blade has opened a total of 40 apertures, and the cultivation technique that comes with it is definitely at the mystic rank or above. However, the number of apertures that have been opened isn't that many, so there's a high chance that it's not an earth rank cultivation technique. Without a doubt, Su Yu would definitely not cultivate the Thunder Blade's cultivation technique because this cultivation technique was definitely not as powerful as the. But the Thunder Origin Blade had finally cultivated a blade, it would be a pity to give it up. Forget it, when the time comes, I can just open a few more apertures and cultivate the Thunder Origin Blade. Anyway, there are only 40 apertures in total, maybe there are overlaps. If the overlaps were high enough, Su Yu might only need to open a few more apertures. More and more thoughts came into his mind, but his concentration was not enough. Just as Su Yu wanted to read more, his willpower fluctuated and he was expelled. Su Yu smiled bitterly. Sure enough, one should read books and not think too much. The two apertures opened by seemed to overlap with Thunder Essence Blade. Reading more will help me grasp more knowledge. Humans and violent apes had different structures, but there were similarities in apertures. The violent ape race could open the 32 acupuncture points in both arms. The human race might find the corresponding acupuncture points and then improve them. This was also one of the tasks of a civilized master. Bai Feng had once told him not to look too many times a day, but Su Yu did not take it seriously. Because he rarely felt that his sea of consciousness could not bear it. These days, he felt that he had really exhausted himself during the previous assessment, but the next day, he was still full of vigor. In Su Yu's eyes, he had not reached his limit yet. After being rejected once, Suyu did not mind and continued to observe. Willpower continued to resist. This time, Suyu no longer let his imagination run wild and observed seriously. As willpower resisted, he continued to strengthen himself. The light on the bone plate dimmed slightly. Willpower dissipated and was absorbed by Suyu. This was the path of cultivation for civilized masters. One was strong in resistance. Soon, Suyu was once again rejected. After resting for half an hour, Suyu continued to observe. The incomplete arm/hat had already brought him many surprises. Suyu even vaguely wanted to try to open these acupuncture points to see if it could strengthen his arms. Of course, he knew that it was very dangerous, but just thinking about it, the current him didn't have the qualifications and capital to improve the cultivation techniques of the myriad clans. His knowledge was too little, and his understanding of the acupuncture points of the human body was too little. I'm too ignorant. I don't even know the division, structure, and total number of acupuncture points in the human body. I'm just thinking about improving the cultivation methods. I'm just courting death. At this moment, Suyu clearly recognized his own flaws. He had too little knowledge. The knowledge of higher education institutions was very important to him. After he arrived at the institution, he had to study hard and become a true genius scholar. Just as Suyu was seriously cultivating. Somewhere in the human realm, the sky was split open. A huge fortress floated in the air. In the next moment, many heads appeared on the fortress. They were all strange in shape. Some of them looked around while others were full of vigilance and caution. A moment later, a fully armed army surrounded the fortress. The expert who led the army walked out. He said coldly, "One Mansion Master, once you enter the human realm, you must set a fixed path. If the 10,000 races within the fortress dare to take a step out of the fortress or deviate from the path, they will be punished as enemies and will not be spared. The Great Xia Civilization Academy must bear the main responsibility." Chapter 192, Entry of the 10,000 Races 4. Chapter 192 Entry of the 10,000 Races 4. In the next moment, many experts appeared in the air. At the very front was the 10,000 heavenly saints. Beside the 10,000 heavenly saints, several experts of the 10,000 races also rose into the air. The general leading the army didn't care. He coldly looked at the experts of the 10,000 races. "You are here to protect the path. Normally, you are only allowed to live in the Great Xia Civilization Academy. Without permission, you are not allowed to take a single step out of the Great Xia Civilization Academy. Otherwise, kill. You are not allowed to act without permission. Those who disobey the order, kill. You are not allowed to pry into the secrets of the human race. Those who disobey the order, kill. If you want to return to your own race, you will need the secret order of the Great Xia Mansion and the Great Xia Civilization Academy. Otherwise, if you meet anyone outside, the human race will be able to kill you." The general repeated a series of military orders. Finally, he looked at Wan Tiansheng and said in a cold voice, "Wan Tiansheng, take care of yourself. If anything goes wrong, not only them, you will also have to bear the responsibility." Wan Tiansheng smiled. He said slowly, "Don't worry, I know what to do. Before I came, I told you again and again that if any clan didn't know what was good for them and was killed, it would be a waste of their lives. They are willing to waste the resources they sent, just do it." As soon as he said this, a 10,000 strong man with a bull's head said in a muffled voice, "Li Hua has great strength." 10,000 heavenly saints said indifferently, "Speak the human language. This is the human realm. No one will translate it for you." The bull-headed man was a little displeased and quickly turned into the human language. He said again, "General, Mansion Master Wan previously promised us that Dao protectors like us have restrictions and students have no restrictions. We can roam the human realm. Why is there a difference between what we said before and now?" The cold-faced general's face was ice cold. That was 10,000 heavenly saints' promise. Go look for him. Students of the 10,000 races are not allowed to leave the academy without permission. Otherwise, they will be killed without mercy. Myriad Heaven Sage coughed lightly. He smiled and said, I didn't say that. What I said is that sometimes, they will participate in some missions. With the permission of the academy, students of the myriad races can also participate. Don't misunderstand my meaning. For example, exterminating the myriad races' disciples. Students of the myriad races can completely participate in it. General, what do you think? The cold-faced general stared at him and said coldly, you have a sense of propriety. Manor Head Wan, both sides can communicate, but I don't wish to see something that I don't wish to see happen. Of course. Wan Tianxing smiled and said, if something really happens, there's no need for you to say it. When Manor Head Xia comes out of seclusion, unless the kings of the 10,000 races come, who can escape from his blade? Escort them to the great Xia Manor. The cold-faced general ignored him. With an order, more than 1,000 soldiers surrounded the fortress. In name, they were escorting, but in reality, they were escorting them to the great Xia Manor. The 10,000 heavenly saints didn't care either. The experts of the 10,000 races beside him were somewhat dissatisfied, but they didn't say anything. Since they had come to the human realm, they also knew what it meant to live under someone else's roof. If they couldn't bear to be small, they would mess up a great plan. Within the fort, some students of the 10,000 races poked their heads out to look at those soldiers. Some were frightened, some were arrogant, and some didn't care. There were also people with fawning gazes as they looked at those soldiers. Clearly, they were students of some small clans. Wan Tianxing did not care about this. He smiled and turned to look at the few experts. He said, everyone has gone to the Great Xia Civilization Academy. I hope that you can abide by the rules. In order to facilitate this exchange, I have taken on a lot of pressure. If anything goes wrong, I'm afraid it will be a bloody disaster. Don't worry, Manor Head Wan. Beside him, there was a middle-aged man who looked similar to a human. A middle-aged man with a tail smiled and said, we also hope to be able to communicate with the human race, improve with each other, and live together in peace. This is also what our Fox King had instructed before coming. We won't give Manor Head Wan any trouble. That's for the best. Wan Tianxing was non-committal. He chuckled and said, the human race also hopes to be on good terms with the various races. The fiend gods are powerful. Today's target is the human race, but tomorrow, it might be all of you. Only by working together can we resist the invasion of the fiend gods. Everyone did not reply. The gods and devils were powerful, and they were not people they could provoke. Even the human race was not something they could compete with. If it was not for the opening of the human realm, there would be too many enemies, and the pressure would be too great. The Great Xia Civilization Academy would not have opened up to them. The experts of the 10,000 races did not speak anymore. Instead, they felt the suppression of their power. Very soon, everyone smiled. As expected, the human realm did not have the power to suppress them. In this place, they could fully display their true strength. It was no wonder that the gods and demons had their eyes on the human realm. Attacking the human realm was much easier and more labor-saving than attacking the other 10,000 worlds. The 10,000 heavenly saints ignored them and entered the fortress by himself. The fortress continued to float and flew towards the Great Xia Manor. In the surroundings, over 1,000 soldiers were on high alert. There were even top-tier experts secretly monitoring them. Even the experts of the 10,000 races were unable to sense if there were any invincible experts. Chapter 193, Dragon Lurking in the Abyss 1. Chapter 193, Dragon Lurking in the Abyss 1. Su family. Ever since he was able to observe the original 10,000 clan cultivation method, Su had once again turned into an otaku and stayed at home every day. He was either reading books or practicing Thunder Essence Blade. On June 29, Suyu made a trip to the college. The Aries art cultivation method had arrived, and Lu Wenyan informed him to go and get it. At Lu Wenyan's house, Suyu stroked the book in his hand with some joy. This was the basic cultivation method of Zhangjin College, War God technique. It was said that it was introduced by the War God Hall of the human realm. The War God Hall was a very mysterious place. It was recorded in some ancient books, but no one knew exactly where it was or what it was like. Suyu only knew that the human realm manners usually fought their own battles. At critical moments, the War God Hall and the Chiu Suo realm would appear and lead the human race to fight against powerful enemies. There were countless experts in the human realm's sacred land. In the ancient books, there were only a few mentions. However, there were rumors that there were many experts comparable to the great Xia king. That was where the true foundation of the human race lay. Lu Wenyan saw that Suyu was happy and said with some regret, "I haven't cultivated the War God technique, and I really can't write the text of will. Without the help of the text of will, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for you to cultivate it." Suyu didn't mind. He smiled and said, "Teacher, without the essay of will, it's just a little difficult to open the aperture. It's fine. I have time to slowly ponder over it anyway. It's best if you can think like that. Originally, you should have looked for Bai Feng for this matter, but, you haven't entered the academy yet, so you don't necessarily have to acknowledge him as your teacher. There's also no need to interfere with your decision just because of the essay of will." As he spoke, Lu Wenyan continued, "Although I've never cultivated it before, I'm still very familiar with the. This is your first time coming into contact with it, so I'll give you a simple explanation." "Thank you, teacher." Suyu was delighted. Even if you obtained a cultivation technique, you might not necessarily be able to cultivate it. With a teacher guiding you, even if the teacher had never cultivated it before, Lu Wenyan was still in his 70s after all. He was experienced and knowledgeable, and it was much better than Suyu's own blind guesses. After more than an hour, Suyu gradually understood the cultivation method of the first level of the Art of War God. A total of 72 apertures were opened, and 8 apertures were the first level. In fact, when you opened the first level of the first aperture, even if you stepped into the Qianjun realm, strictly speaking, it was not considered Qianjun. The 8 apertures did not form a connecting path, and you did not possess the corresponding combat strength of the Qianjun realm. Only when the 8 apertures were connected and formed a connection path could Yuan Qi flow. At that moment, by using blood essence to forge a body and strengthen the body, you would have the corresponding combat strength. Therefore, under normal circumstances, only by opening all 8 apertures could one be considered to have advanced. After opening 8 apertures, it was a Qianjun weight. After opening 16 apertures, it was a Qianjun weight. After opening 72 apertures, it was a Qianjun weight. Even if I had opened 8 apertures, I wouldn't be able to advance. I have to wait until I get the advanced version of the Aries art and open 4 more apertures before I can advance. Otherwise, I would only be able to cultivate the normal version at the Qianjun stage. Lei Yuan Dao can only open the second saber cultivation when he has opened 12 apertures. In fact, other than opening the 9 apertures, he only needs to master the other 3 apertures. 2 of them overlap with the Aries art. In this way, as long as I open another aperture, I will be able to master the second saber of Lei Yuan Dao. Suyu left Lu Wenyan's house and began to plan his next cultivation plan. He would be very busy next month. Opening the apertures and reading books, a month was not long at all. Walking halfway, Suyu thought for a while, then turned around and went to the resource office to exchange for 12 drops of Ironwing bird essence blood. In this way, he still had 30 merit points left. 12 drops of essence blood and 3 drops of Yuan Qi liquid, is that enough for me to open 8 apertures? No, I still need to open another one, that is 9 apertures. Suyu was not sure either. At this point, Suyu also realized that cultivation really consumed a lot of resources. It was better to be a civilized master. All he needed to do was read. Of course, the myriad clans were originally very expensive, and they were also consumables. Just now, he asked Lu Wenyan, and Lu Wenyan gave an affirmative answer. This thing was indeed a consumable. As for how long it could be used, it depended on the frequency and number of times Suyu used it. That fragment of his could probably be seen more than 10 times, it was about to shatter. Ah you, where have you been so early in the morning? Chen Hao came again. This fellow had disappeared for 2 days after the assessment. He had no idea where he had gone. Suyu could not be bothered with him. He met this fellow downstairs and said directly, during the month of your vacation, you will train at my place. Provide me with food and help me wash my clothes. I will think of a way to open your eyes. Chen Hao's face was dull. After a long while, he said with a sad face, Ah you, I don't have any pocket money. I have used up all of it. Cut the crap. Are you in or out? If not, then forget it. Suyu could not be bothered with him. The yuan qi that he would be cultivating next would definitely be very rich. It was not something that could be compared to other places. This fellow still had a face full of displeasure. It was too good for you. If it was not for his best friend, he would not have bothered with him. Chen Hao was depressed. He nodded and said with a bitter face, How did you know that my dad gave me a reward again? Did my dad tell you? Oh. Your dad hit you again. Suyu was surprised. You did well in the exam. Why did your dad hit you? The reward that Chen Hao mentioned was usually given by old Chen to comfort his son after he beat him up. Don't mention it. Chen Hao muttered for a while and told him about what had happened before. Suyu raised his eyebrows slightly. He was a little surprised by Chen Qinghe's thoughts, however, he quickly exhaled softly and said, Your father is right. I haven't even gone to the Great Xia Manor yet, and I already feel the pressure. That cheap teacher of mine, Bai Feng, doesn't seem to be a good person. He stirred up trouble in the Great Xia Manor, causing me to offend quite a number of people even before I went there. Chapter 194, Dragon Lurking in the Abyss 2. Chapter 194, Dragon Lurking in the Abyss 2. Zhou Tianqi, Wu Lan, these people were all here because of Bai Feng. Without Bai Feng, they would not have cared about a little genius from southern Yuan. This cheap teacher had brought him a lot of trouble the moment he arrived. Of course, the trouble was not that big. The key was the loss of merit points. When Chen Hao heard this, he whispered, Ah you, this guy is so troublesome. Why don't you ignore him and find another teacher? Suyu shook his head and didn't say a word. He walked upstairs. Chen Hao followed behind him and asked curiously, Ah you, am I wrong? Yes and no, but it's more complicated than you think. First, Bai Feng is a genius of the Institute of Civilization, and also a teaching assistant. His teacher is also an expert of the Institute of Civilization. If you go back on your words now, you will have offended him. Secondly, Lu Laoshi has taught me for so many years. He is the one who initiated my path of civilization. His relationship with Bai Feng isn't ordinary. I have already been labeled as a member of Bai Feng's faction. I can only go to his faction. Otherwise, if someone were to take me in, they might not really teach me. Thirdly, the fact that Bai Feng can attract so much attention isn't something that an assistant researcher can explain. There must be something that I don't know. There are many dangers and opportunities around a genius teaching assistant. Fourthly, even if there is a conflict in the academy, it will be limited to a certain extent. It won't be as chaotic as they say. The dangers will be smaller and the opportunities will be greater. Suyu said seriously, I don't have the heritage of a civilized teacher, and I don't have a powerful family to rely on. At this moment, Bai Feng is a very good backer. At this moment, not only can I not reject him, I have to be firm and stand on his side. No matter who comes to poach me, I will ignore them. This can be considered a timely help. Finding an ordinary researcher as a teacher, muddle-headed and able to cultivate in peace for a few years, but in the end, you are not given any opportunities. You are not given any opportunities. Are you just seeking peace of mind? Suyu shook his head and said, Housie, I am not willing to just seek peace of mind. I also want to become stronger. Quickly become stronger. Risks are accompanied by opportunities. The greater the risks, the greater the opportunities. This is a kind of crisis investment. Chen Hao seemed to understand, but he didn't. He scratched his head and said, then, nothing will happen, right? Not for the time being. The civilized academy is still in the midst of a battle. Clearly, everything is still under the control of the higher-ups. Moreover, the manor head is still here. After all, the civilized academy is still in the Great Xia Manor. If nothing happens to the manor head, the civilized academy will not fall into chaos so easily. Ah, you're really thinking too much. Chen Hao's face was full of worship. He had never thought about these things. They were too far away from him. Suyu smiled, it's not that I'm thinking too much, it's that you're thinking too little. If we want to climb up, then we have to seize the opportunity. The opportunity won't fall from the sky. Even if we drop a pie, we have to seize it ourselves. Chen Hao scratched his head again, then what should I do when I get to Zhangjin College? What should I do? Don't be tempted. You're not cut out for it. Suyu opened the door, he continued, cultivate well in the college and work hard to climb up. Become stronger. I'm in Civilization College, and you're in Zhangjin College. When the time comes, we can exchange information and exchange information. Civilization College might not have some resources, but Zhangjin College might have some. If you're high enough, you can switch over for me. Your father is right. When we reach the Great Xia Manor, you don't have to interact too much with me. Don't get discovered by others. Just treat us as ordinary classmates. In this way, no one will care about U.S. students from the southern origin. Yes, I understand. Chen Hao nodded heavily. Although he didn't quite understand, he more or less understood what Suyu meant. You're too weak at level 5 of Yuan opening. Open your eye aperture as soon as possible this month and reach level 7 of Yuan opening. At level 7 of Yuan opening, you won't be at the tail end of Zhangjin College, but a core force. This way, your chances will be higher. Level 7 of Yuan opening, Chen Haozong said unconfidently, can you do it? It's very difficult to open your eye aperture. There's a chance. What we people of southern Yuan lack is Yuan Qi. With Yuan Qi, we can achieve twice the result with half the effort. As long as you work hard this month, you'll definitely have a chance. Suyu turned around and patted his shoulder, he said seriously, Housie, if you aren't strong, I won't be able to rely on you. At the critical moment, there isn't even a way out. If you are strong and do well in Zhangjin College, if I don't do well one day, I can still go to Zhangjin College to rely on you. Chen Hao was a little nervous. Why does it feel like going to the Great Xia Mansion is like going to a tiger's den? That is a tiger's den. At least to me, that is. Suyu said solemnly, I want to compete with the geniuses, proud sons, and evildoers of this era. That is a tiger's den. There are some things that you have to fight for. If you don't fight for them, you have nothing. No matter how talented or evildoer you are, if you don't show your value and talent, no one will care about you. Chen Hao nodded again and said seriously, okay, I will definitely work hard to cultivate. It's good that you understand. When I get to Civilization University, I will think of a way to get you some words of will for your cultivation so that you can cultivate faster. Suyu calculated for a while. It might be easier for him to get these things in Civilization University. Without the help of the words of will, it would be very slow if he just relied on Qianhao to cultivate. With the text of will, it would be much faster to cultivate. From that day onwards, Suyu once again activated the homebody mode. He read in the morning, cultivated at noon, and practiced the Thunder Blade at night. Chapter 195, Dragon Lurking in the Abyss 3. Chapter 195, Dragon Lurking in the Abyss at night. Dreams did not come every day. They would come once in a while. At this time, Suyu was actually looking forward to the dream opening. This was because in the dream, he would be able to better master the divine script. The appearance of the divine script in the dream felt the same as when he was under the cover of Civilization's will during the assessment that day. It felt as if it was real. Moreover, he did not need to expend his willpower. This would allow him to control the divine script even faster. On July 1st, the results of the assessment came out. Suyu was first in both categories. As for Qianhao, this fellow had scored 220 points. This was considered an additional point. In other words, he had scored 60 points for his hearing and identification of liquids. This was slightly more than Suyu had imagined, but it was much less than what Qianhao had imagined. He was very depressed. His hearing had scored 60 points, while his identification of liquids had scored 30 points. 90 points. He felt that he could obtain all of them, so why was he suddenly 30 points lower? Suyu could not be bothered to explain this doubt to him. 220 points was not considered a bonus point. In fact, it was only 190 points. This score was barely enough to get him into the Great Xia War Institution. However, Suyu had long suggested that he go to the Dragon Martial Institution, and Qianhao did not have any objections. 220 points was considered okay in the Dragon Martial Institution, but if he went to the Great Xia War Institution, it would really be too low. On the Dragon Martial Academy's side, Old Xia was more or less familiar with Qianhao. No one in the Great Xia War Academy knew Qianhao, and no one would take care of him. Those at the back of the queue did not deserve to be taken seriously. July 2nd, filling in for the academy. Suyu did not go. He directly asked Qianhao to help him fill in. Filling in for the Great Xia Civilization Academy was fine. Even if Qianhao filled in the wrong number, it did not matter. Suyu was a specially recruited student. When the time came, he could contact the Great Xia Civilization Academy and change it at any time. Therefore, he was too lazy to go and waste time. After a few days, Suyu had used up a drop of Yuan Qi liquid and 3 drops of blood essence. He wanted to open the first aperture outside the Yuan 9 apertures today. He did not have the time to delay at the university. Outside the basic 9 apertures, the first aperture that was opened was located in the left arm, limbs, torso, and head. These were the 8 apertures of the first stage. It was mainly connected to the body, allowing the body to form a basic cycle to absorb Yuan Qi, refining the body. Suyu, who was at the 9th stage of the Yuan opening realm, could actually absorb vitality on his own. However, the efficiency and speed of the 9th stage of the Yuan opening realm and the Qianjun 7th stage of the Yuan opening realm were different. Therefore, Suyu still used his blood essence to open the atlas to cultivate. However, the effect was much worse than before. In the bedroom, white light flickered on Suyu's left arm for a while. The originally chaotic light spots turned into a converging light spot in the next moment. The light spot flashed for a moment before quickly disappearing from his left arm. This was the acupuncture point. The first acupuncture point on his left arm had been opened. Suyu clenched his left hand into a fist and swung it. With a boom, the sound of air exploding could be heard. His strength was much stronger than before. Although he did not open 8 acupuncture points to form a cycle, the strength of his left arm was much stronger. An additional acupuncture point meant that he had to absorb more Yuan Qi and store more Yuan Qi. I can be considered to have barely entered the 1000 June realm. If one cultivated the lowest grade yellow rank low grade cultivation method, opening one aperture would allow one to advance to the Thousand June realm. There were also such Thousand June realm cultivation methods, but they were very rare. Yellow rank low-grade cultivation methods were too lousy. Under normal circumstances, these were cultivation methods chosen by ordinary people who did not have talent. Entering the Thousand June realm was still better than opening the Yuan realm. At the very least, one would have greater strength and be able to move bricks faster than opening the Yuan realm. If they were lucky enough to advance to 10,000 stones, even though it was an extremely weak 10,000 stones, they could easily get a high-paid job in a small city. Such a person was not suitable for the front line. At the back, they could sometimes be used to scare people. From number 29 to number 2, the speed of opening the first acupoint is still considered fast, but the cost is too high. The difficulty of opening the basic acupoint was actually higher than opening the Qianjun realm. Therefore, Suyu opened the 8th level and the 9th level slower. The speed of opening the first aperture of the Thousand June realm was even faster. If not for this, the geniuses of Zhanjiang College wouldn't have advanced to the Thousand June realm or even 10,000 stone realm so quickly. If they were as slow as Kaiyuan realm, it would probably take decades for them to advance. I've finally entered the rudiments of the, and my willpower has also increased a little recently. However, that fragment seems to be about to shatter, so I can only continue to familiarize myself with the first blade. In terms of overall strength, Suyu had improved a lot recently. He had even begun to try to truly integrate the thunder word into Lei Yuan Dao. This way, his explosive power would be even stronger. The current Suyu was improving every day. There's less than a month before school starts. I'll try to open another 5 to 6 apertures. It's best if my willpower can reach 30%. Suyu set a goal for himself. Now that he still had enough achievement points and his strength was in a period of rapid growth, Suyu had no interest in going to the Wind-Seizing Hall to carry out any more missions. When he entered Qianjun, it would be much easier for him to earn achievement points than it was now. Suyu was still able to distinguish the severity of the situation. At the same time, at the Great Xia Civilization Academy, in a tall, ancient building that carried a heavy historical aura, Bai Feng lowered his head. His tone was calm as he said, "Teachers, my teacher has been researching the blood essence of the 10,000 races for many years. Now, the results of his research are about to come out. To ban this project now is to destroy the future of the human race." In the building, old men sat around and listened quietly. After a long while, someone said in a deep voice, "Hong Tan has put too much effort into this matter over the years. He doesn't even pay attention to the teaching of the academy anymore. He often enters the heavenly battlefield and goes there for many years. He also doesn't provide resources for the academy anymore. If everyone is like this, how can the academy grow stronger? Those new students, where do they get the resources to cultivate?" Chapter 196, Dragon Lurking in the Abyss 4. Chapter 196, Chapter 63, Dragon Lurking in the Abyss 4. It's not that we didn't give you time. The academy has been funding you for decades. It's time to stop. Bai Feng said in a deep voice, "The results are coming soon. This project is very important. Once it succeeds, we humans will also have the innate skills of the 10,000 races. We humans even have our own innate skills, but we have never been discovered. Bai Feng, we know Hong Tan's project better than you do." Someone said in a deep voice, "Extracting the blood essence of the 10,000 races and deciphering the 10,000 races' innate skill is not Hong Tan's first attempt. He has also been researching and exploring the exploration realm. But facts have proven that humans do not have innate skills, and the 10,000 races' innate skills cannot be transplanted." Bai Feng frowned. "All the facts are proven by evidence and practice, not empty words." "Then, what about your evidence?" The person who spoke was not angry. "Since you said you wanted evidence and practice, did you succeed all these years?" Bai Feng's expression changed for a moment. In the next moment, he suddenly took out a drop of blood essence and swallowed it into his mouth. Following that, Bai Feng let out a low roar. Suddenly, his body expanded and grew taller in the wind. In the blink of an eye, he became a 7 to 8 meter tall giant. He punched out, and with a boom, a loud sound came from the attic. In front of him, an old man grabbed his huge fist with one hand. With a serious expression, he said in a deep voice, "Collision." Yes, the innate skill of the fire dolphin race, collision. Bai Feng's body returned to normal in the next moment. Even though his clothes were torn, he did not care. He said in a deep voice, "Teacher's research has already produced results, but they are not perfect yet. So far, he has only extracted the innate skill of a weak race like the fire dolphin race, but this is the beginning. I believe that the progress will be very fast. Maybe we can extract the innate skill of the powerful god and demon race very soon. We can even unlock the innate skills of the human race and give the human race another trump card. This is a good thing that will benefit the entire human race. The research institute cannot be banned." In the attic, the higher-ups looked at each other. Someone sighed, "Bai Feng, we saw what you just did. But, to be honest, we have actually extracted the innate skills of the weak races like the fire dolphins. We have also achieved the discovery realm. However, even the fire dolphins cannot be extracted when they are in the air. What you guys extracted is only the 1,000 June realm. You should have tried to extract the 10,000 stones and the soaring sky realm as well. Have you succeeded?" Bai Feng did not expect that the seeker realm had also succeeded. At this moment, he frowned. Very quickly, he said, "Although everyone has done it, their research ideas may not be the same. We walk our path, they walk their path. It is not certain who will succeed. But we have already proven that we have results. Why can't you give us a little more time?" Everyone communicated with each other through voice transmission. Soon, an old man slowly said from above, "It is not impossible to give you time. But from now on, the academy will not give you any more funds. Moreover, within 5 years, if there are no results, Hong Tan will obediently return. It is time to teach, it is time to accept students, the secret realm must be explored, and the merit points must be kept. If he continues like this, the academy will strip him of his qualification as a senior researcher." The old man said seriously, "Bai Feng, the human race is strong, and strength lies in the rules." Hong Tan enjoyed the treatment of a senior researcher in the academy and the Great Xia Mansion, but he never produced any results. He did not bring any contribution to the academy and the Great Xia Mansion, and he enjoyed the treatment of a superior every year. Is this fair? Research. Everyone is doing it. If everyone is like this, where do the resources come from? Don't tell me they are not doing other projects and are waiting for the front line to provide resources for us. Bai Feng gritted his teeth and nodded. Alright, I will pass it on to teacher. If there is no further progress within 5 years, we will give up on the research institute within the academy and provide all the information to the seeker realm. You guys are still not willing to give up. Someone sighed. Clearly, Bai Feng meant that if the academy did not support them, they would continue their research outside the academy. The pavilion elders didn't try to persuade him. Hong Tan had spent too much energy on this matter over the years. If it wasn't for this, he might have advanced a long time ago. It was a pity for Hong Tan. Moreover, Bai Feng was now deeply involved. They were worried that Bai Feng would also delay his future because of this. Chapter 197, Broke His Heart 1. Chapter 197, Chapter 64 Broke His Heart 1. Time passed day by day. On the 15th of July, Suyu received a notification from Great Xia Civilization University. At home. Suyu took a look and could not help but curse. His good mood was gone. Registration fee 10,000, accommodation fee 3,000, student clothing fee 5,000, book fee 2,000, total 20,000. student accommodation can be adjusted. First-class students can stay in the recuperation garden. Annual accommodation fee, 50,000, or contribution points. The notice was written with precautions. Suyu was a little depressed. Cash, he was only a little over 20,000 now. 20,000 for registration. Of course, he could not stay in an ordinary dormitory and stay in the recuperation garden. That would cost 50,000 or contribution points. Once he paid, he would starve to death in the academy. Father. The money you left is really not enough. Suyu sighed. The money his father left was too little. If he could not earn, he would have starved to death on the streets. As for the nature garden, Suyu definitely would not live in it now. He did not have enough merit points, so why would he live in the nature garden? This great Xia Civilization Academy is filled with the stench of money. Suyu cursed in a low voice. Everything was charged, so why did he need so much money? Almost half a month had passed since he opened the first acupoint of the Aries art. The blood essence that Suyu had exchanged for the last time was almost used up, and he had used up another drop of Yuan Qi liquid. Now, he only had 1 drop of Yuan Qi liquid left. 1 drop of Yuan Qi liquid, 30 merit points, and more than $20,000 in cash. This was all his family assets. There was still half a month before he entered the academy. He still had to exchange for blood essence and even Yuan Qi liquid. He might run out by the time he entered the academy. He really went to the Great Xia Manor empty-handed. Sigh. Sighing was one thing. Geniuses specially recruited students, but they also had to pay tuition fees. The treatment of a genius was already given. 100 merit points and 2 opportunities in the mystic realm were not something money could buy. If one really wanted to spend money, millions or even tens of millions would not be enough. Perhaps the Great Xia Civilization Academy did not expect that there would be a genius student who would have a headache because of the registration fee. I have to make another trip to the academy today to exchange for some blood essence and Yuan Qi liquid. In the past half a month, Suyu had spent money to cultivate regardless of the cost. Now, he had already opened the 3rd aperture of the Aries art. In the next half a month, he still had to exchange for some resources to continue cultivating. Converting resources into strength, only then would the Great Xia Manor have the capital to earn money. Suyu understood this logic. Resources Department. Suyu gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "Teacher, give me 15 drops of iron-winged bird essence blood and 3 drops of Yuan Qi liquid." There's no problem with iron-winged bird essence blood, but Yuan Qi liquid. The teacher of the Resources Management Department shook his head and said, "This thing was originally not available in the academy. The drop that you exchanged for the last time was something that we borrowed from Teacher Lu." Suyu, Teacher Lu hasn't sent any Yuan Qi liquid over recently. Suyu frowned slightly. He had forgotten that the academy did not have any sky-soaring realm experts. No, Lu Wenyan did. However, he seemed to be cultivating recently, so he probably did not have the energy to provide the academy with Yuan Qi liquid. Yuan Qi liquid was something that could only be bought from the Great Xia Manor in the past. The southern Yuan was too small, and there were too few sky-soaring realm experts. However, it was impossible for Suyu to go to the Great Xia Manor to buy it now. After thinking for a moment, Suyu asked, "Teacher, if I go to the Nanyuan City Lord's Manor now, can I exchange it for Yuan Qi liquid?" The City Lord also flew into the air. Previously, the 3 drops of Yuan Qi liquid he had were all provided by the City Lord. If the merit level is high enough, that's fine, but they might not have any reserves. The resource management teacher thought for a moment and said, "If you really want to exchange, I suggest you go to the Dragon Martial Guards. The Dragon Martial Guards are also flying in the air. They have fewer people, so they should have some reserves. But I don't even know where the Dragon Martial Guard station is." The teacher smiled and said, "That's not difficult. Recently, Nan Yuan is preparing to escort you new students to the Great Xia Manor to enroll. The Dragon Martial Guards will also protect you along the way. You should discuss it with the City Lord's Manor in the next few days. Go and take a look. You might be able to find Xia Shichang. Thank you, teacher. Su Yu thanked him and exchanged 15 drops of blood essence. Not only did he have to use it, but his little brother had also started to recover and absorb the blood essence recently. With 15 drops of blood essence, he had opened 10 cultivation sessions, and his little brother had absorbed at least 2 drops. He would save the rest in case he ran into danger. Underling Lei is still the best. Su Yu sighed emotionally. The Holy Pros absorbed blood essence and spent a lot of money. The Holy Pros did not need to spend money. As for absorbing a bit of his willpower, it was free. Su Yu did not really care. In fact, if a civilized master knew his thoughts, he would probably curse him to death. Absorbing some blood essence to strengthen himself, what was this? This was the most outstanding exemplary divine text. For example, the Thunder Divine Text, which absorbed willpower, was the divine text that civilized masters had a headache over. Therefore, when civilized masters nurtured divine texts, their willpower was constantly exhausted, and it was difficult to replenish. When it came to Su Yu, he even blamed the Blood Divine Text. He did not know how lucky he was. Half an hour later, in the southern Yuan City Lord's Manor. Su Yu waited outside the City Lord's Manor for a while before finally seeing Xia Bing. Lord Xia. Su Yu called out in advance. Xia Bing turned to look at him and said in surprise, "You're looking for me." Lord Xia. Su Yu did not beat around the bush and immediately said, "The academy does not have any Yuan Qi liquid to exchange for. Teacher suggested that I come to the Dragon Martial Guards to ask if you have any Yuan Qi liquid reserves here." Yuan Qi liquid. Xia Bing looked at him, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. The next moment, he said in surprise, "You opened the other apertures, so quickly?" Chapter 198, Shattered Heart 2. Chapter 198, Chapter 64 Shattered Heart 2. No wonder he needed Yuan Qi liquid. This kid actually opened another acupuncture point. Su Yu said honestly, "Recently, didn't the city lord reward me with Yuan Qi liquid? I used it to try to open an aperture, but it consumed too much, so I don't have enough Yuan Qi liquid." "That's normal." Xia Bing nodded and said, "Southern Yuan Qi is weak, and it's already troublesome to cultivate. Opening an aperture consumes the most Yuan Qi. The Dragon Martial Guards do have it. Under normal circumstances, it won't be open to the public. I can't open up the military exchange system for you either. How about this? I have some personal reserves. You can use normal merit points to exchange with me." The Dragon Martial Guards were stationed here, and the Great Xia Manor had Yuan Qi liquid to provide. However, that was the military's resources, and it was not to be supplied to the public. It would not be a problem for Xia Bing to personally exchange it for Su Yu. He was originally in the air, so he could condense it himself. "Thank you, sir." Su Yu hurriedly thanked him. If not for Xia Bing's help, he would not have been able to exchange for Yuan Qi liquid in the southern Yuan. The city lord's manor did not have it either, so he had asked before. Xia Bing did not care about this and said, "Are you cultivating the God of War technique?" "Yes. The War God technique can be unlocked so quickly, so it's not slow." Xia Bing explained, the Dragon Martial Guards usually focus on the War God technique, while the Demon Suppression Army focuses on the basic War God technique. The basic War God technique was a series of techniques like the Thousand Caddies technique. If you practice the War God technique, if you really want to improve faster, you can go to the Dragon Martial Guards or the War Academy to find someone to give you some advice. Xia Bing pointed out, the soldiers on duty will definitely not be able to give you pointers. However, those who are not on duty are all veterans who have cultivated for many years, so you can take fewer detours. I will remember it. Thank you for your advice, Lord. You're welcome. Xia Bing said as he walked, the things are at my place, so I didn't bring them out. Follow me. In a few days, you will all go to the Great Xia Manor together. Along the way, we and the city guards will protect you. Su Yu could not help but ask, Lord Xia, is the journey very dangerous? A little. Xia Bing explained, you should know that the Myriad clan cult is currently active in the Great Xia Manor. Although they killed many of their people last time, it's hard to guarantee that no one is hiding now. This is one point. Also, be careful of the local monsters. These guys are also very troublesome. Local monsters. Su Yu had heard of it, but he had never seen it before. He asked curiously, I've read about it in a book. Due to the rich yuan qi in some parts of the human realm, some of the local monsters on the human realm might also become monsters. However, they are usually not strong. Will they attack humans? Depends. Xia Bing smiled and said, sometimes they won't. These monsters do whatever they want. In fact, their intelligence is not perfect yet. Sometimes, they will unconsciously attack the guys that intrude their territory. We will eliminate them every year, but new monsters are born every year, so we still need to protect them along the way. After all, you guys don't have much combat power. Xia Bing said helplessly, it is also because of this that it is somewhat troublesome to travel between cities. The caravans have to take action on a large scale, and the roads along the way are often destroyed. These things cannot be killed completely, so we can only eliminate them frequently. We can't kill all the beasts, right? Su Yu nodded. That was true. Humans were not the only ones left in the human realm. Xia Bing said again, it's still alright on land. If we wipe them out frequently, the sea area will be in trouble. Because there are more beasts in the sea, and it's not that easy to wipe them out, this also leads to the occasional demon tide in the sea area. Most of the students trained by the Sea Area War College have entered the Sea Area War College. Chen Hao had thought about entering the Sea War College before, so his admission score would be lower. The Sea War College was not on the celestial battlefield, but inside the human territory. The human race had the ability to suppress them, but the key was that they could not kill all of them, which was very troublesome. Of course, Su Yu also guessed that they might have some intention to train their soldiers or use them as resources. Otherwise, if some invincible experts came to the sea, they should be able to quickly calm down. Lord Xia, is it very dangerous on the road? Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be unless the Myriad clan cult attacked in large numbers. However, it's almost impossible. Su Yu was frightened and hurriedly said, Lord Xia, it's better not to talk about this. This kind of talk wouldn't normally be possible. It was almost impossible. In the end, it was more likely to be realized. Su Yu, who often read books, knew this kind of person. It was a typical jinx. Xia Bing obviously knew what he meant. He smiled and did not say much. Soon, they arrived at a small courtyard. Su Yu was a little surprised. This was the Dragon Martial Guard's base. It was not far from his home. It's our base. Xia Bing knew what he was thinking. He smiled and said, it's okay. We will soon change places. There are fewer people in the Dragon Martial Guard's base in Nanyuan. We usually change places every few days to prevent the Myriad clan church from finding out our whereabouts. Wait here. I'll go in and get something for you. Su Yu didn't dare to barge in, so he waited outside the door. After a while, Xia Bing came out and threw a bottle over. Su Yu hurriedly caught it and took out the merit card. Merit card. This wasn't made by the Civilization University, but something made by the Scientific Research University. Although it was called a card, it was actually a small machine, something like a calculator. Su Yu connected his card with Xia Bing's and entered the password. It showed that there were still 15 merit points on the card, and then all of them were transferred to Xia Bing. Chapter 199, Shattered Heart 3. Chapter 199, Chapter 64 Shattered Heart. Xia Bing glanced at it and couldn't help but ask, "You've used up all of it? Did this kid eat merit points?" Even he knew that this kid had earned 40 merit points in the assessment. In addition, he had also received 10 merit points for completing the mission. Furthermore, he had also received quite a few merit points in the previous Myriad Clan Language Academy assessment, Chenhao's 3 merit points reward. All in all, this kid probably had more than 70 merit points. That was it. A Yuan Opening Realm cultivator had spent so many merit points in such a short period of time. He was even more extravagant than Qianjun. 70 merit points. How many Qianjun did he have to kill? Even Qianjun had to kill more than 20 of them. Su Yu said awkwardly, "I have to nurture the divine texts recently, so I'm depleting them faster." Divine texts. Xia Bing was stunned for a moment, then he understood a little. He sighed, "That's right, you civilized masters still have to nurture the divine texts. When you arrive at the academy, your expenses will be even higher, and you'll have to attend classes. You'll also have to borrow the original cultivation methods, your home environment. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to bear. When you arrive at the Great Xia Manor, the Dragon Martial Guards and the army, including the Wind Seizing Hall, will have an external hall that will issue some daily missions. If you want to earn some merit points, you can go and take a look. Of course, your academy itself also has some." As he spoke, Xia Bing continued, "Don't accept missions to the heavenly battlefield. It's too dangerous. After all, you're just students." "Got it. Thank you for your advice, sir." Su Yu thanked him once again. Xia Bing was very easy to talk to. He was not as cold as before. He did not intend to ask why. He felt that it might be because of his good talent. In the end, he did not ask, but Xia Bing himself did, "On your father's side. Although the Zhutian battlefield has been relatively quiet recently, small-scale battles have been going on. Your father led his 100-man regiment on a mission and was slightly injured, but it's nothing serious. There's news from the Great Xia Manor. The situation of these Southern Yuan soldiers will be reported to Southern Yuan City. Your father is more worried about you, so he wants to transfer some of his merit points to you through the military system, so that you won't have enough after you enter the school." Su Yu's expression changed slightly and he hurriedly asked, "My father is injured?" "It's nothing serious. It's a light injury. It's very common on the battlefield." Xia Bing explained, "Don't worry. It's useless to worry if something really happens. There haven't been any big battles recently. It's just a small problem. I just came out from the City Lord's mansion to transfer the merit point system from the military to your system. Your father's side has recently made some gains, and the merit reward will be handed down soon. According to his opinion, we will transfer it to you through the merit system." Su Yu's face was gloomy. "I don't need it. Leave it to my father. He needs it to improve his own strength on the battlefield. By the way, sir, can we transfer our merit points to each other?" "Yes, there are no restrictions on our family members." Xia Bing said, "It's very common for some soldiers on the battlefield to transfer their merits to their family members. Of course, it doesn't count as accumulating merits. Your father is also worried that you'll go to the academy and lack merits." "I don't need it." Su Yu took a deep breath, "My father may not earn as much as I do. Moreover, what I earn is easy. He wants to kill people. Sir Xia, can you help me tell my father that I'm living very well now and won't be able to use up all the merit points? I will pass this message to the Demon Suppression Army for you. However, your father may not receive it. Their encampment will continue to change. It will probably take a long time for him to receive it." Su Yu nodded silently. His father was injured. Perhaps it was not serious, but he had just left for the heavenly battlefield and not long ago. The merit points were transferred to him. Was he afraid that he would not be able to return? In the past, Su Long's merit points were given to his old brothers on the battlefield, but this time, they were transferred to him. Perhaps Su Long was really worried that he would not be able to return, and his son did not enter the program, so he could not even continue his studies. No wonder Xia Bing was not so cold and polite this time. Perhaps it was not because of his talent, but because of his father's performance on the battlefield. 1,000 stones, what a waste. Su Yu muttered in a muffled voice. He was somewhat dissatisfied and somewhat angry. When Xia Bing heard that, his lips moved slightly, but he did not make a sound. You are not even Qianjun, but you despise your father. However, it was understandable that Su Yu was worried. Xia Bing did not dwell on this. He said again, Su Yu, if you are sure that you do not need it, then we will not be handing over your father's meritorious services. But now that you are going to the Institute of Civilization, I think it is best for you to take it. How much did my father accumulate? 53 points. Su Yu frowned. That was a lot. Yes, a lot. This meant that Su Long's meritorious service was comparable to killing 5 early-stage 10,000 stone enemies, which was why he was able to obtain so many merit points. He had only been on the battlefield for a short while. Of course, as a centurion, he would receive some additional rewards for his leadership. No matter what, Su Long's meritorious service of 53 points in such a short period of time made Su Yu somewhat worried and apprehensive. Wasn't his father too fierce? Could it be that he was looking for a one-on-one fight with a mid to late-stage wancher on the battlefield? I don't want it. He can keep it to exchange for something to cultivate. It's only a little over 50 points. If you can tell my father, tell him that I'm not short of money. Recently, I've sold my family's house. I'm preparing to find a rich man to marry into the great Xia mansion. Xia Bing looked at him and didn't say anything for a long time. Kid, are you worried that your father won't die and that you want to anger him to death? Chapter 200, broke his heart. Chapter 200, Chapter 64 broke his heart. However, he quickly understood Su Yu's feelings. He smiled and said, all right, I'll pass on the message for you. Also, I'll pass on the matter of you getting first place in the academy's examination to your father so that he doesn't have to worry. If you encounter some trouble in the Great Xia Manor and don't violate the laws and rules, you can seek help from the local military branch. And, I know. Xia Bing did not say anything else and patted his shoulder. He sighed, don't worry, the human race is invincible. Nothing will happen to you. Your father will also be proud of your results. People like us have nothing else to ask for. We only want the well-being of our families and to be able to stand out. He was already middle-aged and had a wife and children at home. He was stationed in the southern Yuan, but his wife and children were not here. When he saw Su Yu, he could not help but take on the role of a father. There were many soldiers in the great Xia mansion. Their parents fought on the battlefield, and they were afraid that their descendants would be raised in the rear and become useless. To be as outstanding as Su Yu, this was probably what all of them longed to see. After conversing with Xia Bing, Su Yu's mood was a little heavy. Xia Bing was too straightforward. He should not have said the matter of his injury directly. Of course, it was better to say it. It was better to know than not to know. However, this made Su Yu even more anxious. His desire to become stronger became even more urgent. On his father's side, he didn't know when he would participate in the big battle. Once the big battle broke out, not to mention 10,000 stones, even flying might not be safe. I'll cultivate step by step. My speed won't be slow. But maybe I should open the atlas again. The iron-winged bird's cultivation speed was already a little slow for him now. The strength of the blood essence I opened for the first time is probably the reflection of my realm after I opened it. I can't open too strong now, but I can open the first level of 10,000 stones, or the atlas of the 9,000 tons. Then my cultivation speed will be faster, and I should be able to bear it. Su Yu fell into deep thought. There were so many monsters in his dream, but he had actually found a few corresponding ones over the years. He was just not too sure. Even if he had confirmed some, he still could not find the corresponding blood essence. I can confirm the fish essence and the rotary turtle essence, but I don't have their blood essence in the southern origin. I might be able to buy them when I get to the Great Xia Mansion. Su Yu felt that it was enough for him to open the iron-winged bird page previously. He should not take the risk now. Instead, he should ask for stability. After all, he was improving very quickly. However, Xia Bing's words made Su Yu a little impatient. He had to open an even stronger monster atlas to speed up his cultivation. Although it was not slow at the critical moment, it still made Su Yu unable to satisfy himself. The key is, merit points and money. Su Yu had a headache. If he opened the monster atlas of the stone realm, would it mean that he would have to use the blood essence of the stone realm to cultivate in the future? The stone realm is much more expensive than the Qianjun realm. Maybe. I should take the merit points that my father transferred. If his strength improves slowly, does that mean he won't have to participate in the intense battle? Su Yu shook his head. It was just wishful thinking. On the battlefield, if one was weak, they might die even faster. Of course, it was the same for those who were strong, unless they were invincible. Father, you really make people worry so much. Su Yu sighed. He was already an adult, yet he still did not make people worry. It was really a headache. The heavenly battlefield. At a military camp. Su Long looked at his subordinates and sighed, my son is still young. He doesn't even know how to cook, and he doesn't even know how to wash clothes. Sigh, I worry so much for him. I wonder if I'm hungry after walking for so many days. I've been admitted to the Great Xia Civilization Academy, and the expenses are huge. I wonder if you can bring me a daughter-in-law back from the academy. Centurion, there's no news from your son's side, and you already know that he'll be admitted to the Great Xia Civilization Academy. Someone made a joke, and Su Long glared at him. He said unhappily, is there a need to ask? If my son can't get into the academy, then no one from the Southern Element Academy will be able to get into the academy. It's a sure thing. I transferred the merit points from the previous meritorious service back to him. With these merit points, when I return home in a few years, he will at least be at the critical mass. Someone beside him teased, critical mass. Why don't you just say that your son will be able to fly in a few years? Isn't graduating from the Institute of Civilization equivalent to flying in the sky? In a few years, come to our army and become a civilized master. When you meet him, you will have to address him as Sir. Su Long's face turned red. He said indignantly, what's wrong with flying? Is it impossible? My son is a genius. He might not be able to do it in a few years, but won't he be able to do it in a decade or two? At that time, all of you will still be soldiers, and he will be a civilized master. All of you will be his grandsons, so you will have to address him as Sir Su. Ha ha ha, that's right. When the time comes, I will address you as Sir Su. Are you satisfied? Su Long glared at the other party. The other party was also a centurion. This guy's realm was higher than his, and he was usually very arrogant. Su Long gritted his teeth, just you wait. When my son becomes a civilized master, I'll slap your faces one by one. Lu, don't be arrogant. My son doesn't even like your daughter, so why would a civilized master be afraid of not being able to get a wife? The person next to him snorted, you old thing, the moment you came, you already had designs on my daughter. Beating around the bush, you want to pull your son's leg? Dream on. My daughter will participate in the higher education entrance exam next year. Great Xia Zhangjin College is almost certain. In a year or two, it will be 1,000 pounds or even 10,000 stones. You, Su Long, don't even look in the mirror. How many people in Civilization College can graduate? Su Long was so angry that he wanted to challenge him one-on-one. Civilization College can't graduate? Who said that? However, it seemed to be a little difficult. Su Long was a little discouraged. In the next moment, he said, even if I can't graduate, I can still be a teacher in Civilization College. It's safer than your daughter. If I fight to the death, I'll be a barbarian. Su Long, you want to fight? Come on, who's afraid of who? You dare to say that my son isn't good? I'll go all out today and beat you to death, you disrespectful fellow. The two of them started fighting again. The others were all happily watching the joke. It would be better if they started fighting. There hadn't been any fighting recently, so it would be good to watch the show. However, at this moment, everyone had some impression of Su Yu. He was a weak scholar. Poor, weak and frail, he might even be a sickly person. Seeing old Su so anxious, the moment he came to the Army Corps, he started asking around about which family had a daughter. Was he afraid that his son wouldn't be able to get a wife? Chapter 201, Leaving Home 1. Chapter 201, Chapter 65, Leaving Home 1. Nanyuan. In the blink of an eye, it was July 28th. The day of departure. The date of enrollment was August 1st, but they still had to hurry, so the students from Nanyuan had to set off a few days earlier. In less than half a month, Suyu cultivated crazily. Without considering the consumption, his strength improved significantly again. He had opened a total of 6 apertures. However, only 5 of them belonged to the tactics of the God of War. There were 8 apertures in the first layer of the tactics of the God of War, and 3 of them overlapped with the second acupoint of Lei Yuandao. There was 1 acupoint of Lei Yuandao's second blade that did not overlap. Suyu made a choice between continuing to open the tactics of the God of War acupoint or opening the acupoint of Lei Yuandao. He opened the acupoint of Lei Yuandao's second blade first. Since the War God technique could not advance in a short period of time, he might as well master the second Thunder Blade technique first. Although he felt that he had opened an opening for nothing and that it was useless for many students to master powerful martial techniques at this moment, to Suyu, having more life-saving skills was better than nothing. The Yuan Qi liquid was completely used up, but he still had a few drops of blood essence left. The merit points had been depleted, and more than 20,000 yuan in cash was left for registration. He was all alone. Suyu simply packed a few clothes, brought a few essays of will, and prepared to leave with his knife. The door rang. Suyu's ears trembled as he went forward to open the door. Outside the door, Chen Hao grinned happily. "Ah, you, let's go. My dad is downstairs. He drove here to send us to the academy." The gathering place was at Southern Element School. Chen Qinghe did not go to work today to send his son, so he obviously could not bear to leave. Suyu did not say anything. He picked up his small suitcase and was about to leave. Chen Hao saw that he only brought so little stuff, so he could not help but ask, "Ah, you only have 1 suitcase. How much more do you need?" Suyu shook his head and could not be bothered. He turned his head to look at the house and suddenly felt a little reluctant to leave. He had lived here for more than 10 years and was about to leave soon. Once he left, he didn't know when he would come back again. He had been relying on his father since he was young. His father had left a few months ago, and now he was about to leave as well. The house was no longer as popular as it was in the past. At this moment it was extremely quiet. "Ah, you can't bear to part with it?" Chen Hao chuckled and said, "I can't bear to part with it at all. I can't wait to go to the Great Xia Mansion immediately. I heard that the Great Xia Mansion is extremely prosperous. There are people everywhere. There are shops everywhere. Food, drinks, clothes, Taoist halls, everything is more than Nan Yuan." Suyu teased, "Also, your father didn't beat you there. Chen Hao was embarrassed. In the next moment, he said with some regret, if my father didn't beat me, there wouldn't be any pocket money for the reward. Cheap. Su Yu could only reply to him like this. It seemed that this fellow was quite reluctant to part with this opportunity to earn money. During this period of time, Chen Hao had also improved. Unfortunately, he was still lacking by a little at the 7th level of the Yuan opening realm. He was now at the 6th level of the Yuan opening realm. After all, the Yuan opening realm could only passively absorb Yuan Qi, wasting too much. Even if Su Yu called him every time he gathered Yuan Qi, this fellow did not have the time to open his 7th aperture. Looking at the house once again, Su Yu let out a light sigh. He turned around, closed the door, and locked it. Downstairs. Chen Qinghe was chatting with a few grandpas in the neighborhood. When he saw Su Yu and the others coming downstairs, he smiled and said, Xiao Yu, didn't you bring a few more clothes? The academy will distribute them. Just bring a few clothes to change into. As Su Yu spoke, he greeted a few grandpas and greeted them. A few grandpas also had a look of regret on their faces. Downstairs, Uncle Wang sighed and said, in the blink of an eye, Xiao Yu is going to go to an advanced academy. In the past, he was like a little radish head, but now he has grown up. If your father were at home, he might have to wipe away his tears today. Of course. Su Long is both a father and a mother. It was not easy to raise Xiao Yu. The few elders lamented. Su Yu smiled silently and did not reply. After chatting for a while, Su Yu and Chen Hao got into the car. Chen Qinghe started the car. As he drove to the school, he warned, be careful on the road. There are some demonic beasts in the wild. Don't run around alone. Dad, how many times have you said it? Chen Hao was a little impatient. His father had nagged him many times. Chen Qinghe shouted, cut the crap. Do you want to get beaten up? Listen to Xiao Yu on the road. Follow the city guards and the dragon martial guards. Don't run around. When you reach the Great Xia Manor, you have to behave yourself. I'll find a chance to visit you there later. Dad, what are you going to do? It's so dangerous. Chen Hao hurriedly said, it's very dangerous to travel alone. You'd better stay at home. I'll come back when I have time. Stop talking nonsense. Chen Qinghe scolded, you brainless person. It's even more dangerous to run home. Remember, every 3 months, the Southern Yuan will organize the city guards to pick you up. You can only go home when you want to come back. You're not allowed to run around during normal times. Or go to the Xia Trading Company and see if they have any arrangements. If they do, you can follow the Xia Trading Company back. Do not leave alone, understand? Chen Qinghe was still worried and continued to exhort. In this era, the wilderness was not safe. Even if the army was being wiped out every year, it was still not safe. The students went to the Great Xia Manor and wanted to return to the Southern Yuan. They either followed the city guards or the powerful Xia Trading Company back. Otherwise, they might really have to go on their own. Of course, since they were powerful, they naturally did not have to worry about these things. Listening to the conversation between the father and son, Su Yu felt a little envious. His father had gone to the battlefield. Otherwise, his father would definitely be like this today. He might even be more naggy. Chen Hao talked back to Chen Qinghe while pulling Su Yu. His face was filled with joy as he gestured at the long saber in his hand. Chapter 202, Leaving Home 2. Chapter 202, Chapter 65, Leaving Home 2. This was also a standard military knife. Su Yu took a look at it and found that it was similar to his own. It might be of the same sequence. Ah Yu, I have an advanced weapon too. Chen Hao was delighted. In front, Chen Qinghe, who was driving, shouted, the weapon is for your daily use, it's not for showing off. Chen Hao pursed his lips. So what if he was showing off? Ah, you had bought that knife and had always been showing off. He had envied it for so many days, and now that he finally had it, of course he had to show off. Suyu smiled and couldn't be bothered with Chen Hao. Looking at the street outside the window and the familiar environment, he felt a little nostalgic. Soon, the car stopped. They had arrived at the Southern Element Academy. Outside the academy, there were many cars today. There was no smoke rising. These cars were powered by vitality, not oil. A little vitality could make these cars run for a long time. However, even if it was not a huge consumption, it would still cost hundreds of thousands of yuan to buy a car. To run, it would cost thousands of yuan a month. Previously, Su Long did not buy it. Su Long always said that buying this thing was better than riding a fire dolphin. In the past, Suyu did not take it seriously. Now that he thought about it, it was true that riding a huge fire dolphin was more domineering than riding a car. Of course, it was more likely that old Su did not have the money to buy it. In the academy, students were constantly bringing their luggage to the academy square. The parents followed behind. Some wiped their tears, while others constantly reminded them. In this era, if one did not have the strength, it was considered lucky to be able to return once every few months to the Great Xia Manor. Some might not return for several years. They could contact each other through communication. However, the communication in the city was cheap. Once they left the city, contacting the Great Xia Manor would cost several dollars a minute. This was also a considerable expense for an average family. Once they left the city, the communication base stations would often be attacked, interfered with, and destroyed by demon beasts. Therefore, there were times when they could not communicate with the outer city at all. The interior of the Great Xia Mansion was still considered good. Once they left the mansion, there was almost no way to contact each other. There were many demon beasts in the vast wilderness, and there were many people from the myriad clans. They were very happy to destroy these base stations and cut off the connection between the various manors. Suyu saw the old manor head, saw Lu Wenyan, and also saw the other students and teachers. Lu Wenyan waved at him. Suyu bid farewell to Chen Qinghe and hurriedly walked over to Lu Wenyan's side. Lu Wenyan's gaze turned to Suyu and nodded slightly. He said with a light smile, "Not bad, quite a number of apertures have been opened. The main reason is that your willpower has improved quite a bit. Looks like these days have not been wasted." As he spoke, Lu Wenyan handed over a piece of paper and said with a smile, "When you arrive at the Great Xia Manor, if there's any trouble, you can call this number. Of course, if there's nothing serious, don't call." I got it." Suyu took the paper and took a look. He remembered the number and asked curiously, "Teacher, whose number is this?" "Don't ask. If there's anything, just tell me my name." Lu Wenyan didn't even introduce him. What was there to introduce? Could it be that he was telling you that this was my, that number? How embarrassing. Have you used up all your merit points? Suyu nodded. Right now, he had no merit points at all. Don't look at me. Look at me. I can't give you any merit points either. I don't even have any use for them. Lu Wenyan smiled and said, "That's all. Think of a way to go by yourself. When you become a teacher, it's not difficult to get some merit points. I know you don't want to give up on the cultivation of the warrior Dao, and I won't stop you. But don't delay the cultivation of willpower. The combat strength of a civilized master and a warrior may not be much different, but when it comes to magic and mystery, that's clearly the world of civilized masters." Lu Wenyan gently exhaled and said, "In a frontal encounter, a civilized master and a warrior are about the same. But if it weren't for a frontal encounter, a flying civilized master would have many ways to ambush a Lingyun realm warrior. On the battlefield, civilized masters are the most mysterious." Suyu nodded again. Lu Wenyan also fell into silence. Beside him, the students and their parents reluctantly said goodbye. However, some of the students were reluctant, while some were excited. Many of them had never left the southern Yuan and had always heard of the prosperity of the great Xia mansion. This time, the students were anxious and expectant to be able to go to the great Xia mansion. As for the reluctance, they could not feel it at this time. Perhaps in a few days, these students would really miss the feeling of returning home. A moment later, Xia Bing appeared with the Dragon Martial Guards. Apart from the Dragon Martial Guards, there was also 100 city guards, 110 people, escorting the students to the great Xia manor this time. The number of students was not that many, around 200. These were the people from all the war and civilization academies. As for the students from the internal affairs and research academies, they were not with them. Instead, they were escorted by another city guard. However, there were no Dragon Martial Guards there, so the treatment was different. This was the reality. Civilization and war institution trained the strong, so the safety of the students was more important than those people. Furthermore, there were many students there, more than 1,000. Under normal circumstances, it would be safer over there. This was because the 10,000 races religion looked down on these ordinary students and would not specifically attack them. The gains were not big, but the losses were not small. It was not worth it. Xia Bing walked over. This time, he was leading the team and the city guards were assisting him. Xia Bing exchanged a few words with the old manor head before quickly walking over to Lu Wenyan's side. He said solemnly, "Teacher Lu, we're about to set off." This period of time was also the most chaotic. The wilderness was chaotic, and the cities were also chaotic. When the city guards and the Dragon Martial Guards left, they couldn't help but have some petty thoughts. As for the southern Yuan side, Teacher Lu has paid more attention. Chapter 203, Leaving Home 3. Chapter 203, Chapter 65, Leaving Home. One of them flew away with his team. The southern Yuan side lost one of them and a small team of Dragon Martial Guards and city guards. It was also the time when the city defense was at its weakest. Lu Wenyan nodded and said, "It's best if they dare to show up. I just lacked some merit points recently." After saying that, Lu Wenyan added, "You guys have to be careful too. In the past, the wilderness was very chaotic. There were even beasts from the religion of 10,000 races purposely creating a beast tide. Don't fall into the pit. We will." Xia Bing was solemn. He was also a veteran, so he naturally understood all of this. The two of them flew up and communicated for a while. At the entrance, more than 10 trucks appeared. The next moment, someone shouted, "Students, board the vehicles. Those who are called, quickly board the vehicles. Those who aren't here, don't wait for them. Think of a way to go to the Great Xia Manor. Number 1 vehicle, call for attendance. Number 2 vehicle, call for attendance." The instructors of the school were responsible for maintaining order and arranging for the students to get on the bus. Su Yu quickly got on bus number 1. Chen Hao was also on the bus, along with Lu Yu and Zhou Chong. They could be considered acquaintances, or in other words, top students. Great Xia War Academy, Great Xia Civilization Academy, Dragon Martial Academy, Nine Heavens Academy. These students from the top-ranked academies were all on the bus at this moment. The interior of the truck was not small, but it was also a little crowded. The parents were all standing outside the truck. Some were reluctant to leave, while others kept looking inside with worried faces. Chen Hao was not so reluctant to leave. He looked at Lu Yu. He asked curiously, "Lu Yu, isn't your family cooperating with the Xia Trading Company? Why are you with us? It's so crowded. You might as well follow the Xia Trading Company. It's so comfortable." Lu Yu smiled but didn't reply. Chen Hao scratched his head. Seeing that she didn't speak, he didn't ask anymore. There were men and women in the car. There were about 20 people in total. There were more men than women. No one said much. Apart from a few familiar whispers, many people looked at Su Yu. However, they didn't chat with Su Yu either. Let's go. As Xia Bing shouted, the vehicles started moving. More than 10 trucks left the academy. The city guards and the Dragon Martial Guard's vehicles were interspersed among them, protecting the students. In the academy. The old mansion master sighed, another batch of students has passed. The Great Xia Mansion. Sigh. Nanyuan. Year after year, a large number of students marched towards the Great Xia Mansion. But in the end, some died, some were crippled, some settled down in the Great Xia Manor, and some gave up on cultivation. There were only a few who truly stood out. Batch after batch of students were sent to the Great Xia Manor. Seeing that they were either dispirited or had given up, and no longer had the ambition they had when they left, the old manor head sighed and felt helpless even though he had seen through the past few years. Lu Wenyan watched the vehicles leave and said calmly, "This is their path, the path they must take. Those who walk this path for a long time and those who walk for a long time are ultimately just a minority. We are all failures." The old mansion master did not reply and asked instead, "Are you really not going back to the Great Xia Civilization Academy? Su Yu has left. The students that you have taught over the years are probably no longer as outstanding as Su Yu. To be honest, I'm afraid that the next few batches won't be as good as Lu Yu and the others. It's a waste for you to stay here as a flying civilization master. There's no rush. My body hasn't been completely reforged. It doesn't matter where I go now." Hearing Lu Wenyan's words, the old manor head asked curiously, "What blood essence did you use to forge your body?" Lu Wenyan actually didn't apply to him. Where did this fellow get the blood essence to forge his body? What blood essence? Rely on yourself. Lu Wenyan said confidently, "How can civilized masters like us use the blood essence of 10,000 races to forge a body? We can just rely on vitality to forge a body." The old manor head was a little doubtful. Was this for real? Vitality to cast a body? Are you sure you're not lying to me? Old Lu, a few days ago, someone said that they saw a woman coming to your house. She doesn't look like a person from the southern Yuan. Nonsense. Lu Wenyan said angrily, "Who's spouting nonsense? I, Lu Wenyan, am innocent and upright. How can I allow a woman to enter my house?" Seeing that he was furious, the old manor head did not say anything else. He could not help but be curious. What kind of situation was old Lu in? He did not even need blood essence to cast his body. Could it be that his lover had sent blood essence? If it was not the southern Yuan people who came to look for Lu Wenyan, then it was most likely that someone from the Great Xia Manor had come. "Old Lu, tell me, how many of our batch of students will be able to fly in the end?" Hard to say. Seeing that he did not continue asking, Lu Wenyan also heaved a sigh of relief and said, 3 or 5 people is considered a lot. 1 or 2 people can also be considered lucky. If Su Yu is not included, it is hard to say even 1. After so many years, there were too few students who managed to make it to the sky in the end. More than 40 years ago, he came to the southern Yuan. He brought out more than 40 classes of students, and more than 200 people entered the Great Xia Institute of Civilization. In the end, less than 5 people graduated. The Great Xia Institute of Civilization recruited close to 2,000 people every year. There were about 50 people who graduated. Very few, 1 out of 40. In reality, the rate of Nanyuan's graduation was even lower. There were only 3 people who actually left. In 40 years, 3 people had left. That was actually not too little. However, 1 person had died in battle, 1 was still leading the army, and the last person had become an assistant teacher in the institute. It had already been decades, and he was still an assistant teacher in the sky. It was obvious that he had reached the end. Nanyuan, this small city, had not flown out of the phoenix all these years. In Nanyuan's eyes, the sky was already very strong, but in the Great Xia Manor, it was really nothing. P.S. I'm begging for a recommendation ticket, how pitiful, how pitiful. Chapter 204, Who Would Believe It? Chapter 204, Chapter 66. Who would believe it? 1. The parents were nowhere to be seen. The familiar streets gradually disappeared into the distance. Some people were sad, while others were excited. In the shabby carriage, the seats were very small. They could not lie down, so they could only sit upright. After sitting for a while, some people could not hold it in anymore. In front, Zhou Chong turned his head to look at Chen Hao. His gaze carried a hint of provocation. He said, "Chen Hao, I heard that the Dragon Martial Academy and the Great Xia War Academy are very close. This time, we went to the Great Xia Manor. If we meet again in the future, don't say that you and I are classmates." Chen Hao raised his head and glanced at him. He said seriously, "Of course. I can't afford to lose that person. You can't even beat a girl. Don't say that you know me." Faint laughter came from inside the carriage. Zhou Chang's face turned red, and he said angrily, "Who said I can't beat her? I don't care about girls. A good man doesn't fight with girls. I don't believe it." Chen Hao shook his head, "Unless you call me now. There are girls in the carriage." At this time, the girls looked at the two of them with disdain. Two idiots. Zhou Chong had a depressed look on his face. Does this guy understand what I'm saying? I'm a student of Great Xia's Zhanjing College, and you're from Dragon Martial College. Don't you feel that you're inferior to me? The two of them argued with each other, and the atmosphere in the car was no longer dull. The atmosphere became a little livelier. Besides Su Yu, a petite girl could not help but look at Su Yu and whispered, "Student Su Yu, have you reached the 9th level of the Yuan opening realm?" Su Yu nodded slightly. He did not know this girl, nor did he seem to have seen her at Southern Origin Academy. She might be a student from one of the other academies in Southern Origin. Southern Origin did not only have a middle-tier academy, but it was also the largest and most famous middle-tier academy in Southern Origin. 9th level of Kaiyuan, that's amazing. The little girl was a little envious. I heard that you obtained first place in both the Civilization and War Academy examinations. Why did you go to Civilization Academy? I like to study. Su Yu smiled and gave a perfunctory answer. The girl did not doubt him and said with some regret, "That's too bad. If you were to go to Zhanjing College, you would definitely be able to obtain 10,000 tons of stones very soon. I heard that Civilization College does not attach any importance to cultivation at all. It's all right. It's the same for you to contribute to the human race at the back." The two of them exchanged a few simple words. Su Yu was also the person that everyone had been paying attention to. At this moment, a male student with a buzz cut on the right also said, "Su Yu, I heard that the last time at the examination venue, you had a confrontation with the people from the Great Xia Manor. When you arrive at the Great Xia Manor, they won't find trouble with you, right?" The moment these words were said, many people looked at Su Yu. The last time the people from the Great Xia Manor came, a few of the geniuses had their faces covered in dirt by Su Yu. Would Su Yu be taken revenge? Su Yu smiled and said, "I don't think so." It was just a few words. What he said was simple. The others knew that a few of those people were not accepted. Using the excuse of Chen Hao and Zhou Chang's conversation, everyone began to chat. They were full of longing for the Great Xia Mansion. That was the core of the Great Xia Mansion. There were as many experts there as clouds, and there were many opportunities there. Su Yu listened quietly and rarely made any comments. Most of the students of the Civilized Academy were like that. They listened quietly, but the students of Zhanjing College preferred to talk about gossip. In the convoy, on an open truck, Xia Bing rubbed his long saber and looked around vigilantly. At this moment, the convoy had already left the city. The road was still quite smooth, but now that they had just left the city, the rest of the road was not so smooth. Nanyuan was about 1,500 miles away from the Great Xia Mansion. It was at the edge of the Great Xia Mansion. If the road was smooth, one day was enough to reach the Great Xia Mansion. However, this was not how the journey was calculated. There were often cases where the road was interrupted, and cars had to be stopped to repair, or even abandoned to walk. They set off a few days earlier in order to prevent accidents from happening. Besides Xia Bing, the centurion of the city guards looked at Xia Bing with admiration and said, "Sir, why don't you take a rest first? Leave the guarding to us." "There's no need." Xia Bing looked around and exhaled softly. "Focus on protecting car number 1. Keep an eye on the other cars and don't fall behind. Every year at this time, there will be some trouble. It's not a big mistake to be careful." The centurion nodded solemnly and continued, "In the past, accidents usually happen in other big cities. It's rare in the southern Yuan." Xia Bing did not say anything. The student teams of other big cities would often be attacked, but the southern Yuan was rare. This was indeed the truth. Because the southern Yuan students were weak, their value was not high. In other big cities, it was not rare to see students above 7th level of the origin realm. Killing such students might be more valuable than wiping out the entire southern Yuan team. However, this year was different. Xia Bing said in a low voice, "Be careful, this year is different. High-class students from the academy are a thorn in the eyes of the myriad clan religion. Nanyuan has them this year." The centurion fell silent when he heard this. It had been many years since Nanyuan had produced a high-class student. It was indeed a little troublesome for a double high-class student to appear this year. A high-class student was in existence at the genius level even in the Great Xia Manor. It was hard to kill them in the Great Xia Mansion, but it was not easy to kill them in the Southern Yuan dynasty. This year, the Dragon Martial Guards were personally protecting the road. This had a lot to do with Suyu. In the past, they were usually led by city guards at the 9th level of the 10,000 stone realm. Suyu did not know at this moment and thought that it was a normal escort. In reality, the Dragon Martial Guards were in charge of protecting the entire city of the Southern Yuan dynasty. They were not a group of students that would leave the Southern Yuan dynasty easily. Chapter 205, Who Would Believe It? 2. Chapter 205, Chapter 66. Who Would Believe It? 2. After a moment of silence, the centurion said softly, "There are also upper-class students in other big cities. We only have Su Yu on our side. Sir, the Myriad Clan Church suffered heavy losses in the Great Xia Manor last time. They shouldn't be coming again, right?" Xia Bing shouted in a low voice, "Don't take any chances. Regardless of whether they come or not, you must be careful. Inform your brothers that you must pay attention. Escorting the genius students safely to the academy is our biggest mission this time. Listen to our orders." "Yes." The centurion quickly responded and used the walkie-talkie in the car to inform the people in the other cars. Escorting the 200 students to the Great Xia Manor this time was their main mission. However, in this mission, top-class student Suyu was a very special existence. As a top-class student, Suyu was really in danger. At the critical moment, these city guards and the Dragon Martial Guards would carry out the priority order. They would prioritize protecting Suyu's safety before considering the other students. This was the importance and preferential treatment of the high-class students. Nanyuan had not seen a high-class student for many years. After traveling 400 li, we will arrive at another city, Tianshui City. When we reach there, we can contact Tianshui City and see if we can go to the Great Xia Manor with their students. If the two cities meet, our safety will be guaranteed. As Xia Bing spoke, he looked at the time and said, "If everything goes smoothly, we can reach the Tianshui City area within 5 hours. In these few hours, tell our brothers to pay more attention." "Yes." I'll go to the rear carriage to take a look. You guys be careful. As he finished speaking, Xia Bing soared into the air, causing everyone in the carriage to be filled with envy. It was only when Xia Bing landed in a carriage behind that everyone withdrew their envious gazes. In the wilderness. On a small hill, several figures were currently flashing. Everyone, are we still going to take action this year? The silence continued for a moment before someone said sinisterly, the Heavenly Yi Divine Sect has already been destroyed, and the Great Xia Manor is a dragon's den and a tiger's den. This year, even the small city, Nanyuan, is said to have a soaring dragon martial guard protecting the Dao. What does everyone say? Our Dao Master means to abandon this year's attack plan. Someone answered. It was a woman. At this moment, she said with a smile, the Great Xia Mansion has been angered. On the battlefield of the heavens, the Great Xia Mansion has withdrawn the Dragon Martial Guards. The main force of the Dragon Martial Guards might not be hiding somewhere at the moment. It's not worth taking the risk to kill a few young brats. Dao Master. It was similar to the address of a mansion master. The person in charge of a sect in the Great Xia Mansion. The person in charge of a small city was usually the hall master. The Dao Master was the person in charge of a sect. There were strong and weak, the strong mountains and seas, and the weak Ling Yun. The woman's sect had obviously given up on their previous hunting plan. The person who spoke earlier said sinisterly, your Cloud Rat Divine Sect has always been so cowardly. Xia Longwu is in closed-door cultivation. Do you think that the pig-like Lord Xia Ho will arrange for the Dragon Martial Guards to ambush him? This year is the opportunity. Without Xia Longwu, if we can destroy the geniuses of the 28 cities, at least a few dozen great Xia manors will rise up in the next 20 years. The woman did not mind, she smiled and said, one can only live long if one is careful. The Heavenly Yi Divine Sect is indeed powerful and very ostentatious. They have been rooted in other manors for many years, but in the end, they only came to the great Xia manors, heads will roll, and the divine sect will be destroyed. Even the sect master has fallen, and many celestials have died in battle. Our Cloud Rat Divine Sect is not as powerful as them, nor is it as ostentatious as them. With that said, the woman smiled again and said, we will not participate in this year's plan. If your Blood Fire Sect wants to make a move, no one will stop you. The Blood Fire Sect was the sect that had previously joined forces with the Heavenly Yi Divine Sect to attack the Southern Origin Sect. The woman knew that the people of this sect were all crazy. The crazy kind. It was the path that the Blood Fire demons had inherited. They were extremely crazy. When the Heavenly Yi Divine Sect was destroyed, they had suffered heavy losses as well. In the end, not only were they not afraid, they had even mobilized more forces to enter the Great Xia Mansion. They wanted to take advantage of Xia Longwu's seclusion to get back at them. The woman did not want to go crazy with them. They were courting death. Xia Longwu was in closed-door cultivation, but the Great Xia Manor's strength was here. It was enough to develop quietly. Why provoke the Great Xia Manor at this time? Wasn't that just looking for trouble? The people from the Blood Fire Sect were somewhat dissatisfied and could not be bothered with the woman. The Cloud Rat Sect's strength was not strong, so it was not his target. The next moment. This person said again, it's naturally impossible to say that we will destroy the geniuses of the 28 cities. It's just a saying. However, the Myriad Clan Divine Sect has suffered so much in the Great Xia Manor. Every year, countless deaths and injuries occur. Now, the other prefectural cities are also questioning our strength. There are fewer and fewer people who have joined the sect. The destruction of the Heavenly Yi Divine Sect has caused the prestige of the Myriad Clan Divine Sect to be swept to the ground. If we can't get back at them, I'm afraid the Myriad Clan Divine Sect will fall. The Sinister Man sighed, our Bloodfire Sect is not purely for revenge. The Great Xia Manor has laid down a pocket for us to crawl into. It's not like I don't know. They must have thought that our target is the southern origin. This year, a genius appeared in the small city of the southern origin. The war institution took the high-grade examination, the civilized institution took the high-grade examination, and the outline of the divine text was completed. Everyone knows about this news. Although there's nothing wrong with it, logically speaking, the great Xia civilized institution should have arranged for someone to secretly escort such a genius student to the institution. However, there has been no movement this year. The man laughed sinisterly. This is bait. It's meant for us to sneak in. The moment these words were said, someone said in a low voice, since that's the case, does Hall Master Blood Crocodile still intend to continue the hunting plan?